Okay, councillors. How are we doing? Got a bit of feedback. Councillor Major, could you pop on mute for a second? I might mute you. Is that better? Okay, there we go. Good evening, councillors. Thank you for joining us online. It's just past 7 o'clock, so we'll start the meeting. In light of the public health orders, many councillors and senior staff are attending and participating in the meeting via audio-visual links, whilst members of the public are viewing the meeting through a link provided on council's website. Arrangements put in place are in line with the legislation recently enacted by the state government to assist the efficient and effective operations of council meetings during health order settings. Whilst members of the public will not be able to participate in the meeting in real time, an opportunity has been created for public to send in their submissions about items of business, and councillors have been sent those submissions earlier today. I'll start by acknowledging and paying respects to the many Aboriginal clans on whose traditional lands the city is located and this meeting is being held. Council's Code of Conduct provides for standards for appropriate behaviour and sanctions for misbehaviour at meetings. Councillors and staff should be aware of the provisions of the Code of Conduct in regards to these matters. Now, council staff and the public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded on audio tape for minute-taking purposes as authorised by the Local Government Act 1993, and this meeting is being webcast through council's website. I'll now ask Reverend Jenny Stoddart of St Philip's Anglican Church to offer prayer.
Thanks for the opportunity to pray tonight. I'm a very new member of the City of Ryde. This is my 10th week here at Eastwood, and it's a joy and a privilege to come and encourage you and pray tonight. I'm going to just share some words, Jesus' words from Matthew 11, and they're a great encouragement in times of leadership struggle. Jesus says there, "I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And it's an invitation to dependence on a God who comes and reveals himself, and an invitation from Jesus that he will carry with us the burdens that we face. I'm going to pray for our council and our city. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you that you are a God who draws near to us in Jesus. We ask for our council that you would give them great wisdom. We ask that in weariness, that you would uphold them. We ask for all who serve in public life, wisdom, skill, imagination, and energy. We particularly bring before you our households and those who struggle in their households during this season of lockdown. We ask that you would preserve and protect family life, that you would preserve and protect all those who are vulnerable. Lord, we ask that you would enable the council now to work in such a way that they would bring justice and good for all. But loving God, you have made all people in your image, and you care for the poor and the distressed. We ask that you would make us a just society where the rights of all are acknowledged and upheld, and that those who are struggling would particularly be kept at the centre of council's dealings tonight. We pray for our companies, social institutions, for business, and for all those who make up the City of Ryde. We ask your good for them and your good for each other. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Stoddart. Reverend Stoddart, thanks for you, and welcome to the City of Ryde. Look forward to meeting you.
Great to be here.
Look forward to meeting you shortly when we're allowed to be out and about again. Councillors will now sing the National Anthem.
Australians, all days are free.
Thank you, everybody. We now have note apologies, and we have an apology from Councillor Kim. Are there any applications for a leave of absence? No applications for leave of absence. Are there any disclosures of interest, councillors? Councillor Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a declaration, item 5, I declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest. I belong to a political party. And item 9A, traffic and parking report, I declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest. I know several disabled people from my local community who attend the North Ryde Community Church. I also have a declaration, it's a bit obscure, but I'm going to put it anyway. Item notice of motion 2, I declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest. My half-brother has Italian heritage and his father was born in Italy. And the same for item 4, less than significant non-pecuniary. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've noticed that, but I'll do the same thing. I'll disclose a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 5, given that I also belong to a political party. Thank you. And I will remain in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Purcell.
Like the other councillors, I'm part of a political party, you may have noticed, over the last 4 years, and I'll be talking to item 5. Less than significant, non-pecuniary, I will stay in the room and talk to it.
Thank you, Councillor Purcell. I intend to, I do have the same disclosure I'd like to make, less than significant non-pecuniary on item 5. I'll remain in the room. Councillor Lang.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I will do the same on item 5, and I suppose I should also declare that my partner is half Italian, and so I'll declare the same declaration on that as well. Non-insignificant, whatever it is, it's non-pecuniary, doesn't matter, it's not real.
Full disclosure here. Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Udelian.
I declare the same on item 5 and non-significant.
Thank you. That's it. I think I've got Councillor Brown. Same again.
Thank you, please, Mr. Mayor. Item 5, non-pecuniary, non-significant. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for now, councillors. Thank you. Staff will email those forms across if you don't have a copy. Are there any tablings of petitions tonight, councillors?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Can I just add some input, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
I've got one petition in relation to notice of motion number 5, parking matters and neighbouring streets surrounding the Ryde Aquatic Leisure Centre. It will be presented to staff. I know it's very difficult under the current circumstances, but there's many signatures in relation to this matter, which I'll elaborate a bit further. I'd also like to withdraw the current petition and have it minuted, and that I'd like to thank particularly Ms. Code and Mr. Tony McDermott for their swift and professional manner in this matter, where I will withdraw the petition signed by hundreds and hundreds of local residents in relation to the Egron number 1 cafe in Gladesville in Buffalo Road, where there was some technicalities placed on them to close them down. But Ms. Code and Mr. McDermott have acted professionally. And today I received a very charming phone call by Mr. McDermott, very professional, and the matter is now closed and they can continue operating. So if I could please have that minuted, that we thank staff for their professional manner, and all the residents and the coffee shop owners are very, very pleased, and they would like me to pass on their thanks to the council officers. Mr. Mayor, so a good story.
Thank you, Councillor Maggio. Do you have an indication just for how many signatures are in the petition in regards to the RALC there? Do you have those figures there, Councillor Maggio? Just for the minutes?
I'll just give you a quick count.
Just approximately, please.
Yep. Yeah, about 60 odd.
Okay, let's just put approximately 60 signatures in that table of petitions.
There is more, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's just for the minutes, Councillor Maggio. We can update it at confirmation next month if required. But that's that. Seconded by Councillor Pedersen.
No, I had a question, Mr. Mayor. Is there an opportunity for the Director of Planning to respond to Councillor Maggio's assertion that the planning matter in Buffalo Road meant that business was closed? I don't believe.
Look, I think if it was an agenda item, we'd probably have a full discussion of it. But given that it's just thanks staff for their help, I think we'll just leave it at that, Councillor.
Right.
We just need to move on. If it was an agenda item, then yes, we'd have a full debate. But given the nature of the matter here, it's just thanking staff, then I'm happy just to let that go, and we can perhaps you can have that discussion with Ms. Code outside of the council meeting, Councillor Pedersen. Okay, table of petition. That petition is tabled. Thank you, Councillor Maggio, for bringing that forward. We've got a whole heap of public participation which has been sent through to councillors on items listed on the agenda. And Councillor Zhao, I believe, had a matter of urgency.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have a matter of urgency regarding the acting deputy mayor's position.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Zhao, I'm happy to allow that as an urgency. You're proposing that we elect an acting deputy mayor, is that correct?
That's right. I've sent the motion to Catherine, and also I've attached the Local Government Act for councillors' information. Yes, that's the one.
Thank you. I'll allow that as urgency. Councillors, could you please vote on whether or not this is a matter of urgency? So I need 11 votes, councillors. I've only got 8. I'm missing Maggio, Clifton. Maggio and Clifton, that's it.
May I ask when Councillor Kim is going to return?
31st of July is his leave of absence. That's when it expires.
Okay. So it's for 1 month.
Councillor Clifton, are you able to indicate your vote, please? Oh, there you go, 6-4. And Councillor Maggio? Are you abstaining?
He's muted.
You're just on mute, Councillor Maggio. Apologies.
I just want to scroll down and read what.
This is voting on the matter.
This is voting on whether or not it's urgent, Councillor Maggio, yes or no? And then we go into the substantive motion itself.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
No worries, I'll just do it now. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, that's 6 votes for, 5 against. It's urgent. Councillor Zhao moved. We'll just call for a second in a second. Okay, could I have a seconder to the motion, please? Could I have a seconder? Councillor Purcell, thank you. Okay, Councillor Zhao.
Thank you. I believe all councillors can see this motion and also the act attached. So I would like to speak about my reason. Councillors, the Ryde community is facing another round of COVID-19 challenge. As the government, we need to lead our local businesses and residents to find the best solutions in the most effective time. This requires the mayor, deputy mayor, and all councillors to stand by at all times. No matter how busy, no matter how hard, at this critical moment, we should all try every effort to attend our monthly council meetings on site or online to make decisions and serve our city. Councillor Gordon has got the experience and responsibility as the deputy mayor before my term, and I'm confident that he can assist the mayor again to lead this city when there hasn't been any active deputy mayor in most of our recent government activities. As a team member of this council, I look forward to Councillor Gordon's contribution to keep our city on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zhao. I guess I'd best just before we proceed, Councillor Gordon, are you happy to accept this nomination? We wouldn't want to force you as acting deputy mayor by force. Yes, you are. Okay, thank you. Councillor Udelian.
I have a question to you, Mr. Mayor. Did you ever ask the deputy mayor to preside or to represent you in any places during this time?
During his term as deputy mayor?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
So he refused?
I'll need to get advice on that, but I have asked him to
okay, second question.
On a number of occasions.
Okay, on second question, during his leave of absence, which all councillors knew about it, there was a time frame on it. Did you ever ask him to represent you during this leave of absence time?
No, because he was on leave of absence.
So that means you didn't need any deputy.
Well,
so you didn't need any deputation, especially when COVID, we were doing everything online. I just came tonight at the council meeting. I've been checked out telling that it's a COVID because I received the second email late. So that means all councillors are doing their jobs and their representation through the Zoom or through the phone or through distance way. So if you didn't need anything to represent you during this period, I don't see this, first of all, it's any urgent or any urgency. Second, I find out this is just a political stunt just before the election, using council resources for political campaign, which is against our guidelines.
Well, that's your opinion, Councillor Dunn. Thank you. I take it you're against the motion. Councillor Maggio.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add my opinions and views to this particular matter of urgency. There's been more serious matters of urgency that we have knocked back in relation to the support of residents. This is clearly not a matter of urgency. First of all, I'd like to also understand with some statistical data, because it's your say or his say, how many times has Councillor Kim been invited to present himself as a deputy mayor in the city? Clearly, previous deputy mayors have always had acknowledgement by yourself in the media. Clearly, over this term, I haven't seen not many adverse articles by the mayor supporting our deputy mayor, our current deputy mayor, in the local papers. So clearly, I think Councillor Sarkis-Yadelin is probably quite right in his deliberation. You probably haven't invited the current deputy mayor to take on your role. And clearly, as a former mayor, you don't really need to utilise a deputy mayor on every single item or matter that you would not like to proceed in. You can use other councillors. So perhaps maybe we should get a report from your office outlining how many times have every individual councillor been invited to basically deliberate some matters, or to act on your behalf, or to act on behalf of the deputy mayor. Let's put it into perspective. Let's get the statistical data and then bring this motion back, perhaps, and then we can have some clear guidelines if we can vote on it. Clearly, I can't vote on this on the run because, you know, clearly, councillors, have some compassion. The poor councillor is sick, and now you're putting the knife into him. That is clearly not warranted at all. Clearly not warranted at all. Give him a chance to speak up before you put the boot in. I clearly don't agree with this at all. You are putting down the deputy mayor who was voted by his peers, and clearly Councillor Gordon. You shouldn't accept this nomination. It's only 1 month. No one attacked you when you were the deputy mayor. Councillor Zhu, no one attacked you when you're deputy mayor. Let's, stop this games. I would really appreciate if you withdraw this and let this. I would really appreciate if you withdraw this and let's get on with the business tonight. It's a big agenda. This is not really necessary. It's only a few months before the council elections, and you don't even know if Councillor Kim is running. You don't know. I mean, that's my point of view, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Majo. Councillor Lane.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, I just dropped off for a minute, so I had a couple of questions, and I apologise if these were addressed before. Just a couple of questions, and then I want to speak on the matter. The first, perhaps, is to you, Mr. Mayor, or to the staff. In this circumstance, because it's an unusual election, should the councillor declare an interest in the matter, given that they're a nominee and this is not a normal election? What's the procedure usually in these issues?
It's a matter for each council whether or not they declare an interest in the matter, and I don't believe it's ever been declared for a position of mayor or deputy mayor if you're nominated. No.
Well, no, in a normal election, I understand it's not a requirement, but this isn't one. I think it's a bit unprecedented. So anyway, I assume that Councillor Gordon didn't declare an interest when I was offline, so I just wanted to ask that question. The second question is just to the mover, if I can. Councillor Zhao, I heard part of what you said with respect to the community not being fully represented at this time, with the leave of absence being taken by the Deputy Mayor. I just wondered if you had an idea in your mind what activities you think the Deputy Mayor or the acting Deputy Mayor will play. For example, when Councillor Gordon was last the Deputy Mayor, or you indeed were the Deputy Mayor, what activities, how did the council function better than as it does currently under Mayor Laxal's leadership? I'm just wondering what you actually envisage Councillor Gordon doing in this time. Councillor Zhao, are you there?
Mr. Mayor, through you, is this a question to me? Can I answer the question?
It is a question to you, Councillor Zhao. However, I've just noticed that we've got the Deputy Mayor who has joined the meeting, and I'm assuming you've broken your leave of absence, Councillor Kim.
Playing your game, Mr. Mayor.
Well, yeah, Mr. Councillor Zhao, sorry, my question was to you, if you're prepared to answer it. I just wondered what you were hoping the Deputy Mayor would do in this 1 month period, although I know Councillor Kim's returned to the meeting, but what, you made a comment that you didn't think... Oh, you didn't
That's
think
right.
the area was being represented or something? I did drop out, so I wasn't sure exactly what it was that you said. I just wondered what you you thought that he would do, or indeed what you did when you were in the role that is not happening right now.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer Councillor Lane's question. Make a very simple example. When I was deputy mayor, if the mayor is absent, if the mayor even go to toilet or any other things that he couldn't chair the meeting, I needed to sit in his chair and chair the meeting. That's simple. And in this critical time, anything can happen. I'm sorry to say, anything can happen to anyone, including all of us. What's going to happen if our mayor cannot chair the meeting? As a councillor, I just don't know what to do, and I don't know what the community perception will be, and this is the main reason.
Oh no, that's fair enough. I guess if I can just say one more thing on that. I recall the last two iterations of deputy mayors. Councillor Zhao, you were actually the only deputy mayor in this term of council that sat in the chair. Councillor Gordon, I don't think ever had an opportunity to sit in the chair. The mayor obviously has a strong bladder and never needed to relieve himself during a meeting. And as such, I think you're actually the only one with experience on this council to actually have played an acting mayoral role from the position of deputy. So I just wonder why you suggested Councillor Gordon is more experienced than yourself, given you've actually had more on-the-job experience in the role.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not interested to answer this question.
Of course not.
Thank you, Councillor Zhao. Just before we continue, Councillor Kim has joined us. Could I just get confirmation that you're back from your leave of absence, Councillor Kim?
Obviously he is.
Are you back from your leave of absence, Councillor Kim? Councillor Kim, are you back from your leave of absence?
Yeah, your mute button's on.
No, it's not.
If he's joining the meeting, obviously he is.
Just need, well, he's got his leave of absence to the 31st of July.
He's back.
Well, if he's in the meeting, obviously you can't. His position isn't even vacant.
I've been advised that we need advice. His leave of absence to the 31st of July.
He is in the meeting, Mr. Mayor. I can see him.
He's just exited the meeting. Okay, let's carry on then. Okay.
All right, so can I
Councillor
speak
Dillon,
against?
you've spoken. Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, I had the call. I just wanted to ask those questions, but I'd like to speak against it if I
Sure.
can. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So look, I'm stunned at the. I mean, it was actually quite pleasant to see the deputy mayor back for a moment, but look, I'm stunned that frankly you would put a motion like this. Actually, I'm not stunned that you put a motion like this. I think that it's something I've come to expect. What I'm more stunned at is the indignity of Councillor Gordon to accept it for only a month. I mean, it's almost embarrassing. I'm not sure how much the role can mean, given that in the last iteration when he had the position, nothing was achieved or occurred. The mayor has always occupied the chair. And it just seems extraordinary that now, a couple of months out from an election, you question, his ability to do the role. And we've never had to rely on the deputy, with the exception, as I alluded to before, where Councillor Zhao, you filled in for, I'd say, all of 90 seconds when the mayor popped out for a brief break. I think it's maybe unusual for me to say, but I have a lot of confidence in the mayor to be able to fulfil his duties and occupy that role. And I just find it extraordinary that the small-mindedness to need to, feather oneself with more titles at the dying stages of this council. It's a strange thing to do. What I also find interesting, and why I voted against urgency on this, is that this is not the first meeting we've had with Councillor Kim's absence. There's been previous opportunities to do this, and yet you bring it today. And I tried to ask some questions before. The mover didn't want to answer them. It says to me that not a lot of thought has gone into this motion, that your logic to putting it forth is, in fact, not accurate or true, that it's more of a game, more of a personal vendetta or indeed spite against Councillor Kim. I would have thought better or frankly, all the councillors that voted on this. It's not. It's a fairly insignificant matter, and yet you want to take up time to I don't know, try and exact vengeance or something against a democratically elected deputy. I'm quite surprised, but you know, people can speak for themselves as to why they would accept this nomination. But I'm disappointed that of all the urgent things that we could be dealing with tonight, this is the thing that we thought to not only bring, but to accept and then to vote for. It's just says a bit about the character. So I'll leave it there, but I'll obviously be voting against this. I don't think that this is important. And I have every confidence in Mayor Laxar to do the job, even though he and I disagree frequently on matters of policy. So thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Dillon, you've already spoken. Did you have a question? Or...
No, I have to ask question. I have
Sure.
to ask to the general manager.
Sure.
I can't.
It's my call.
Yep. The question. Yep.
All right. Look, I have to ask the general manager a question. Now that the names of the councillors candidates are on list of local government election commission, are we in a caretaker mode? But I can see that already the mayor started campaigning as Labour West Road councillor candidate. Are we not in a campaign mode now, and we're using council resources to campaign one of his own, which he expelled him from the party? Is not perceived as a campaigning?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the caretaker period hasn't begun yet. In fact, there's a report tonight which details all that.
So that means can we just change anytime the mayor and deputy mayor during the year?
This one is enough.
Sorry, wrong microphone. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The clause was up there, and it's really up to the council. They may elect an acting deputy mayor as they choose. It's really a matter for the council.
So can I move a motion that we remove the mayor and elect another mayor now?
No, you can't, Councillor Dillon. It doesn't work like that. You saw the local government.
Probably you are incompetent and you are using your position for political gain.
Well, that's your opinion, Councillor Dillon. Thanks for sharing it.
It's not my opinion, it's voters' opinion as well.
Okay, we'll find out. Okay, Councillor Gordon.
Thank you, Mayor. What an interesting discussion this is. We're back in business. I'd like to just reference a few things that I think are mostly from Councillor Lane. First of all, in terms of my declaring an interest, well, it did just arrive. This is a motion of urgency. It wasn't on the agenda. And secondly, I'd point out that every single councillor, apart from the mayor, has an interest or the same degree of interest in that any one of you could be elected as deputy mayor, and none of you have claimed, declared an interest. I have actually sat in the mayor's chair for a very brief time. I don't remember exactly when it was. It was quite early on. But then again, I was only deputy mayor for a year, but I think it was round about the Christmas period, give or take, of 2017. Mr. Mayor, I think if you listen to Councillor Lane, your role has been entirely diminished to just sitting in that chair once a month. It seems like you don't do anything else. You have no other responsibilities. You never actually meet with the community. These are all the things that the Deputy Mayor is there to either fill in on an ad hoc basis when required, or more officially if you were to actually get sick and to step into the Mayor's position. So it's important that we have a Deputy Mayor who's available. Councillor Kim applied for leave, for 3 months leave. And perhaps really, if he'd been responsible, he would have stepped down then to allow the city to have a deputy mayor. But he didn't. Having said all that, Mr. Mayor, I think I feel like we can't really proceed until we get some clear ruling on whether Councillor Kim has returned from his leave. Is it possible to just drop in like that and drop out again? Or Is he
No,
finished?
well, as far as I'm aware, Councillor Gordon, I put it to him on more than one occasion if he had returned and he didn't answer. So, look, he could send an email tonight and say, I've officially returned from leave of absence, and then you're no longer, if this motion carries, would no longer be the acting deputy mayor. So, you know, if he's returned from leave of absence, he's returned, and that's it, you know, and that's what.
Can I move a deferral to the end of the meeting, please?
That's what the motion says. So let's
I move a deferral
carry
to
on.
this item to the end of this meeting, please.
We've just got Councillor Kim joining now, and I guess I'll give him the opportunity to answer that question. If he's officially returned from leave of absence, then I guess this motion's rendered redundant. Councillor Kim, I'll just give the opportunity. Have you officially returned from leave of absence? You're just on mute, Councillor Kim. Oh, there we go. Looks like you're on now, Councillor Kim.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Have you returned from your leave of absence, Councillor Kim?
No, I'm not. I'm actually on sick leave. I'm happy
Okay.
to stay in here to replace you if you need to go to the toilet and leave the computer on. But I really need to lie down. As you can see, I'm on my pajamas here.
Yeah.
I just came in because of
You
this
need him?
move. Sorry? I'd like to go back to my sick leave tomorrow if possible. I'm happy to turn the computer on and listen to what you have to say. And when you call me, I'm happy to fill you in. Is that okay?
Councillor Kim, no, we just need a determination whether you're on leave of absence or not. You've got a leave of absence to the 31st of July. It's not one or the other. No one's forced you to be here tonight. No one's.
That's because I'm sick.
Sure. If you're sick, Councillor Kim, you should perhaps look after your health. And if you're on leave of absence to the 31st of July, you can either withdraw that leave of absence or let it carry on. So I just put that to you, because if you're on leave to the 31st of July, then we need an acting deputy mayor. If you're not on leave to the 31st of July, then we won't. So could you please clarify whether you're on leave or not?
I'm happy to serve as the deputy mayor of the council, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so are you on leave or not?
I'm back.
You're back. Okay, thank you.
Are you happy to give me some time to get changed?
If you're back, Councillor Kim, then that's a decision you've made. So I guess this resolution is moot, and we don't need to continue.
Shame on you, Mr. Mayor. Shame on you. You are not coming to the lowest level.
This is a low act.
Lowest level,
We've
Mr.
wasted
Mayor.
half an hour of
Your
time.
local government.
Yep, absolutely. Both of you, all
Bloody
of you.
place dysfunctional for
No
a
one
reason.
obstructed.
And it's worse, Councillor Gordon's position is worse than.
And he's your own Labor
everything.
councillor too.
Total
Even
disgraceful.
better.
Total disgraceful.
Thank you,
No
Councillor.
one
Let's see how many,
anyone.
let's see how many positions he was deputy mayor.
Let's carry on, councillors. This motion's now out of order.
To do the matter of urgency now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to nominate another councillor. Would you accept my nomination?
No, Councillor Kim's returned from leave of absence, so that part of the act
I
is defunct.
wasn't saying about the deputy, I was saying about the mayor.
I'm nominating Roy Maggio, Councillor Maggio.
Thank you, councillors. That's unlawful, councillors.
Well, the other one was
You're
unlawful.
making a mountain out of a molehill,
No,
councillors.
we're not.
No,
We're
we're not.
playing the same game as you're playing.
It's the Labor Party attacking the Labor Party again, isn't it? 4 years we've had it.
All right, councillors, let's move on.
Because of you, Mr.
He's a
Mayor.
logical councillor.
Let's move on, councillors.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
Mayor, this is Councillor Zhou. As the mover of this original motion, do I still have the right of reply?
There is no motion.
The motion's now out of order, councillors.
Pretty low act anyway.
As Councillor Kim has
It's
returned from the leave of absence, so it's out of order and it's off. But we don't need to proceed.
Shame on you, Councillor Zhou. Shame on you as well.
So Mayoral Minute 521, councillors. We have the unfortunate passing of Mr. John Newhouse, and I'll just bring that Mayoral Minute up now. Just 1 second. Councillors, you would have received an email from Ms. Angela Jones-Blaney a couple of weeks ago notifying us that City of Ryde staff member John Newhouse, the manager of library services, had tragically passed away. His contribution to the development of council's library service and the local community cannot be understated. I know he worked very closely with councillors and with staff and with our community. Amongst his many achievements, Mr Newhouse pioneered council's uptake of digital collections and led the transformation of our library technology and developed creative and innovative initiatives such as the Hive, which is a wonderful asset down at West Ryde Library, and the Inspiration Wall at Ryde Library. In 2015-16, John re-established the art collection, retrieving and cataloguing over 170 works and artefacts that have been relocated in various council buildings. And I know Councillor Gordon had a very close role in working with Mr Newhouse to do that. He also coordinated the archival photographic recording of the Ryde Civic Centre, creating an accurate, comprehensive and permanent photographic record of the building. Above all, Mr Newhouse cared deeply about his fellow staff, and he was highly respected by his work colleagues, industry peers and the community. He'll be greatly missed by everyone at the City of Ryde, and on behalf of Council, I'd like to pass my condolences on to John's family and his friends for this tremendous loss, and also just thank Ms Jones-Blaney for communicating this to councillors over the last couple of weeks. I know John was very well regarded amongst council staff. I'm proposing, councillors, that we have a suitable item of remembrance be installed in one of council's libraries, of course in consultations with John's family, that a donation be made and that we observe a minute's silence. I've got Councillor Gordon next in line as a seconder, and I'll open the floor to discussion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a terribly tragic thing, and I know that staff are, in particular, are so very upset and by this situation. It's been some time coming, of course. I'm not quite sure of the timeline, but a good year at least, perhaps 18 months since he was first diagnosed. As you mentioned, Mr Mayor, the first time I met John was when you decided we should put the artwork up in the gallery at Chambers, and John and I went and sorted through everything, and I actually had no idea who he was. I thought, I don't know who he was. And of course, he's such a humble man that he didn't really let on who he was. And then a little bit further down the track, I got the idea, and then of course he became the head of the library services, taking over from Jill. It's a terrible thing, a very, very lovely man. And I just want to pass on my condolences, of course, to his family, but also to staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Councillor Maggio. You're just on mute, Councillor Maggio.
Mr Mayor, thank you very much for this Merrill Minute. It's so kind of council to do this. Is there anything else we could do for the family in relation to the passing of this wonderful man?
I'll ask Ms Jones-Blaney to hop on. She helped me draft this I would imagine in consultation with the family. Ms Jones-Blaney.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for your question, Councillor Maggio. Yes, we have been in constant contact with John's wife and the family. They held a private memorial service for John last weekend, and had close family and friends attend that memorial service. We have been in contact with John's wife regarding a suitable item of remembrance to be installed in Ryde Library, and we do intend to have a gathering together in Ryde Library, of which we will also invite councillors to attend in a couple of weeks' time on a Sunday, which will also afford us the ability to be able to have as many staff there as possible. And the family are very happy about the way we're proceeding in that regard. And I'd also like to say that I know that there are a number of library staff and John's wife and family actually logged on to this council meeting tonight because they knew that the Merrill Minute was coming before council this evening. So I obviously welcome them to what's happening at the moment so they can see the love and support that John had from all of us here at the City of Ryde.
Okay, thank you. Supplementary question for you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to just slightly change your Merrill minute. And I think it's appropriate that we speak to the family and recognise his wonderful contribution to the City of Ryde by dedicating a chair in his acknowledgement for his wonderful service to one of our local libraries. I think that'll be a very kind gesture for his service, and I do thank you for what you've presented here tonight, Angela. I think it's very, very kind and generous for you to put forward those suggestions, but I think we can go a bit further. I would probably like to increase the donation to $500, Mr. Mayor, and if you're not, I think there's enough of the budget to increase it to $500 because that is a wonderful foundation and it's a worthy cause. And I'd really like to see that all councillors get on board on these suggestions that I put forward. I'd like you to lead this, Mr. Mayor. I think a dedicated chair, like we do have that in our policy, I think this is a one-off, that it be named after this gentleman who's provided some wonderful service. And the library can be, the library that this chair be presented for the whole of the community to recognise him could be a kind gesture for this council, and perhaps the family would like to nominate one of those libraries that could have this chair installed.
Thank you, Councillor Maggio. Look, I think that's a great suggestion. In regards to the recommendation, I think Part B covers that, a suitable item of remembrance. We wouldn't want to dictate what that item may or may not look like. So I think, yeah, I think Ms Jones-Blaney will certainly take that recommendation to the family. Is that right, Ms Jones-Blaney?
Through you, Mayor, that's correct. We actually have a number of ideas in mind, and a bench was one of those, but we were also thinking of a plaque under the inspiration wall that John had so much to do with in the past, but we'll certainly take on board all of those ideas.
Yep. I just wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to specify anything, Councillor Maggio, just in case the family were or weren't in favour for whatever reason, but I think it's a great idea and very happy to increase it to $500. So for that, that amendment could be made, please. Councillor Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this Merrill minute and allowing us the opportunity to say a few words. I had spent a whole day one day with John at a Vivid workshop into maker spaces, and he was very impressive with his knowledge of libraries, and it was easy to see that he had great joy in bringing new things to the libraries for our community. He was witty, he was warm, and I just want to send my condolences to his wife and his family and to our staff, who I know will miss him very much. He was highly respected and loved. And I'm sorry for your loss, everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Pedersen. If there's no further debate, again, councillors, I'd like to thank you for your comments today, and we all send our regards to the Newhouse family who are watching online. Once this resolution is resolved, I propose that we pause for a minute silence. So let's vote, please, councillors. Councillor Delian and Councillor Maggio, please.
I did vote. I voted with the thumb.
Yeah, I think we need a tick or a cross.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Thank you. That's unanimous, councillors. We'll now pause for a minute silence. Thank you, councillors. We now move to mayoral minute 6/21, which you'll see on your screen there. Seconded, Councillor Maggio. Thank you. I don't think I need too much commentary here, councillors. We supported our sporting groups, community groups, small businesses throughout the pandemic and lockdowns this financial year. Obviously, we're back in lockdown again, so I'm proposing the same through a report to come to council. Actually, that should be in there at the next meeting. Report to, just in part A, prepare a report to come to council at the July meeting, please. Just change part A. Prepare a report to come to council at the July meeting, for the next council meeting, yep. Yep. Again, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here. Just restart some of the measures that we so successfully put into place last year. Obviously, that needs to be costed, and once we know the fullness of this lockdown, the way to deliver that fee rebate or fee refund needs to be considered as well. So this will come back to us in July, and we can resolve to support our community once again. Thank you for seconding, Councillor Maggio.
And just a commentary, Mr. Mayor. Just some commentary. I would like to probably put an option in your mayoral minute in relation to the next July meeting. Could we put as soon as possible and that extraordinary meeting be called? Because under the current circumstances, it doesn't look very good in relation to the amount of cases that are happening every day. We could be in lockdown for more than 2 weeks. So it would be probably ideal if you do put an option there for an extraordinary meeting called.
That's fair enough. Why don't we prepare a report as soon as practicable?
If you don't mind, it's really entirely, it's your motion, and I don't want to...
and then if the General Manager has that report prepared earlier, then I'll ask you to sign an extraordinary meeting request with me, Councillor Maggio. Okay.
Thank you.
As soon as practicable, or at least the next council meeting. So just leave that or by at least, I suppose. As soon as practical or by the next council meeting, Good suggestion, Councillor Maggio. Okay, is there any debate on this one? Thank you, we'll vote.
Mr. Mayor. I had my thumbs up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment. At part D, the General Manager also prepare a report to support citywide small businesses grant small business grants similar to that of Eastwood Small Business Grant.
Do we have a second to that motion amendment? Councillor Brown, thank you. Councillor Kim.
I'll let Councillor Maggio Brown to speak first.
Hi, am I? I think it's just a wonderful suggestion. I think you probably should accept that, Mr. Mayor, as part D, and then we can move on for the next. It's a big agenda. It's a good suggestion.
No, I'm not going to accept that. We had the state government announce a very substantial and well-received grant today. I think our support can be provided elsewhere, as we did in other ways during the pandemic last year. Councillor Zhao.
Mr. Mayor, I'm speaking against this amendment as well. I remember last year when we moved a similar motion of the grant, we were the leader in the community and in the government to help the small business. And in this time, the small business is second round. The small business care more about whether we have thoughts on them, we have action to help them, whether we discuss about the situation, where they can find the information, these kind of things, much more than a couple of thousand grant at this time, because we are only a local government. This is also the reason I moved the matter of urgency, because I was contacted by so many businesses just to find the information and find the solutions to face this lockdown, including the requirements, the safety concern, a lot of other things. And they try to talk to us. They still saw me as the deputy mayor, and I need to explain to them that my term finished. But when they ask me the question, who the deputy mayor is, can we talk to them? I have to say, is on leave of absence. You can try to email. And this is why, but congratulations to Councillor Kim, deputy mayor, to come back. But what I was about to say is that even a staff member, when they have 1 week or 2 days, 3 days leave, their position has someone acting to make sure the operation keeps running. So I'm speaking against this one. I think the community needs more resource from us than just money at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Zhao. You're against the amendment. I'm against the amendment too. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I say, it disappoints me again that we're prioritising petty politics before fighting a pandemic. I would have thought after 3 or 4 months of debate last year, when various councillors, myself included, yourself, Councillor Kim, Councillor Zhao, and others, Councillor Maggio, all made very constructive contributions to supporting our community, supporting them through rebates of sporting fees, which sadly was opposed by Labor at committee, and then it was opposed again by Labor in the full council, and then you eventually had to relent because frankly the community were not with the Labor Party and the socialist left of this council, and instead it was a good common sense approach to supporting people in need and supporting clubs in particular in need. And the same politicking occurred as we tried to support the small business community. There are a number of initiatives put forward by various councillors, and frankly, unless you're part of the socialist gang of 6, then your motion was always lost, and it was only the socialist 6 who could prevail in fighting a pandemic. There's no politics in a pandemic, unless you're in the Labor Party in this council. We need to put our community first, please, Labor councillors. There's no reason why Part D of this component cannot be incorporated. There are a number of motions put forward last year, including wearing face masks. But of course, you couldn't bring yourself to support that motion from myself, Mr. Mayor, and here you are wearing a face mask right now. What is common sense and what is clearly well accepted could not be accepted by you because it was moved by a Liberal. The same held true for supporting our sporting clubs and the fee rebate to sports field users last year. You couldn't bring yourself to it. You came there kicking and screaming, dragged to the end point where you finally had to relent and give in, and you did the same to small business support. Doesn't matter how we support our small businesses or our sporting users or community groups in any way. What's important is that we support them and we make it a bipartisan effort. There's no politics to be found in supporting people in COVID, but we're back to square one with this council, and it's the typical animal farm logic, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, or whatever it is, and Labor good, Greenies good, Councillor Zhao good, and everyone else, well, you can go off and do your own thing, and you vote us down every time. If this has been a popular initiative at Eastwood, the small business grant and the voucher scheme, let's implement it more widely. It's something I called for more than 12 months ago. I wasn't alone, but of course there's this silly, small-minded politicking that comes from councillors in this place who cannot possibly bring themselves to support good ideas unless they come from an appropriate Labor-endorsed source. It's why this council is so divisive. It saddens me really that we've learned nothing in a year and a half, that we still want to find a political excuse to support or vote up or vote down a motion according to who moved the motion. It's beyond small. I would have thought the lowest of the low was removing Councillor Kim for maybe 3 or 4 weeks as the deputy mayor, but you just go from one low to the next low, really. How you can't support the man's amendment is not clear to me, but I look forward to the debate where you justify how you reject what is clearly a well-supported initiative. I look forward to the debate. Sadly, you just use your numbers every time, and there's not much of a debate in these formal public debating sessions. It's just the block numbers. Whatever decision we made in the Mayor's office last night, well, that's going to be the decision from a Monday night carried forward to a Tuesday night. Don't worry about the quality of debate or the contribution by other councillors. Just vote it up and be damned with the rest of them. Shame on you lot from the Labor Party, quite frankly. Shame on you.
Thank you for your commentary, Councillor Brown. Okay, if there's no...
There is. I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Major.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Could you just scroll back down to your Merrill minutes? Is it exactly the same as the amendment?
Except for Part D.
Well, look, councillors, let's compromise here. I think the Mayor's onto something that we all agree with. Let's cut out the cheap shots. Let's get down to business, and let's be logical about all this, because I am a very logical person. The Mayor has outlined the support of small businesses in his Part A. Let's go further. And Mr. Mayor, and I really would like your leadership on this, and this will probably kill the whole argument and we can move forward. Then you've already supported the businesses of Eastwood. Let's say that outlining measures that could be implemented to support small business in Ryde, excluding Eastwood. So therefore, all your energies and all your support are going outside of the Eastwood zone. And there you are. And that should kill all the debate.
Thanks for your suggestion, Councillor Major. I'm happy with the motion as I wrote it up. It was very deliberate and considered, and it's now for a matter for Council to decide which motion or amendment. As others have said, we've had a debate on a grant structure. I think that was good for its time, but once federal and state support came in, local government support could be placed elsewhere, as we did do very effectively, and we did so in a targeted manner. I think that's worked very well, and we should go with that approach again for this lockdown period. Councillor Major, I'm making my point, and I've heard you, but I'm happy with the motion as it is, and it'll be a matter for Council to decide, Councillor Major. Councillor Gort.
I haven't finished my deliberation, Mr. Mayor.
It was a question, I think.
That was a question which I answered, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just rising to speak against the amendment and for the original motion. I don't sort of, I read it 3 times. In fact, it was very helpful of Councillor Brown to sort of go on and on, because I was able to turn the volume down a bit and read the motion a couple of times and get it into my head. As far as I can see, there's no real point to the addition. Everything is in A, B and C already. So this is just time wasting, I'm afraid.
We'll go to Councillor Kim and then I'll put the motion, please. Councillor Kim.
Am I on there?
You are, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I just wonder if we could talk about some of the debates that came out of this amendment. Now, let's go back to some of Councillor Zoe's ideas about leadership. Because the state government has not done in the past first, we have to take the leadership to them first. But then it was expected, widely expected at the time, the state government will come up with a certain plans. And before we actually start issuing our grants, state government actually already did come up with the small business assistance grants. And then, even then, we didn't stop. I think the leadership is not about doing first. Leadership is about being consistent in caring and having a good Samaritan faith. And I don't see any reason why, because the government's done it, we can't do it. And there's no room for delegation in being Good Samaritan. And therefore, I don't like this argument that because we haven't done it first, that therefore we should not do it. Maybe we haven't done it first, but we can make it better. Our aim here is to keep focus on community interest and trying to support them through this difficult time. We're not here to come first or to set a goal saying that we've done it first. I don't think that's a good argument. Now, let's go through about this small businesses don't need $2,000 grant. Well, if just go down and have a look at Eastwood or West Ryde or anywhere, just about every shopping car park is empty. Every time I go to Aldi or Uber to buy something, and then you see them, car park is empty. Small businesses are doing difficult times. These are the people paying good $1,500 to $3,000 a week on a rent. And what they're recovering from it, those restaurants and cafe, is almost minimal. Now, perhaps, I don't really want to be so rude, but perhaps I should just make a point, Councillor Zhao. Perhaps it's because $2,000 is not much money for you, and therefore it's probably not important for you. And perhaps, secondly, it's not important because you don't run a small business. And thirdly, it's because you don't even live in Eastwood, do you? You don't live in Ryde LGA. Perhaps that's the reason why you're not so caring. Now, can we go to the third point about finding information? I agree with that. I think we should do everything we can to upload our webpage where we can put the information in so our small business can look it up quickly and doesn't have to go through hours of research and find the information. And I agree with you on the point that's already been mentioned here. I'm not saying we should give $2,000 and not provide them the information. What I'm saying is that we can do both. When we can do both, there's no reason why we should limit to one. About this point about who is the deputy mayor, I am. Are you going on telling people that you don't know who deputy mayor is? And do you think that because you're not a deputy mayor, you're a councillor, that your responsibility somehow is vaporized? What is it that you can do as a deputy mayor that you can't do as a councillor? So I don't understand where your sense of hesitancy in providing community support for the small businesses who are suffering from COVID-19 is coming from. It seems like it's vaporized. And one more thing I want to mention here is there's no reason why we can't restart this initiative. We all supported your initiative last year when you wanted to provide a grant. What we do support is why are you only providing a grant to Eastwood and not to the citywide? What this motion is doing is correcting it. This is your chance of redemption, Mr. Mayor. It's your chance of redemption to prove that you're not a mayor of Eastwood, but you're actually a mayor of City Ryde. So take the chance. We're giving you a chance of redemption. This will be great for you. You should learn how to be humble, to serve all people, not just a subsection of the society. Now, final point is that, look, I am actually only asking for a report. We're not asking here to make a deliberation tonight to provide whatever sums of money. All we're doing is asking for a report. Okay, finally, Mr. Mayor, have some conscience. I got out of my deathbed so I can talk to you, to plead to you, look after people.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I'm just going to put the motion. Could I have a seconder to putting the motion, please? If there's no further debate, it's all right, councillors, I won't put the motion. We'll just vote on the amendment in the names of Kim and Brown. Voting on the amendment in Kim and Brown. That's 6 votes all. I cast against. and the amendment is lost. And just once that vote's clear, councillors will vote on the motion. Okay, councillors, we're now voting on the motion. Councillors Kim and Zal, please. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We're now going to go through the list of items for items without debate. And I'll go through them. If you'd like to speak to them, councillors, if you could just please indicate by making a noise or by using your hand. Just once that vote is clear.
Probably it's better, Mr. Mayor, we go each item. That's quicker.
We've been doing this pretty well, Councillor Delian. We'll go through them and see what we come out with. So item 2, is there any debate on item 2? Confirmation of minutes, no debate, so we'll do that without debate. Item 3A, 3.3, sorry. So 3.3 is the future use of an unnamed park on Lane Cove Road. Is there any debate on that one? No debate, thank you. So that's item 3 and item 3.3. We've now got item 4 and item 4.3.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Business ethics. Okay, so we'll put item 4 without debate and we will debate item 4.3.
Item 5, 4.5.
Item 4.5 is the large generation solar certificates. Is there any debate on that one? No debate on that. Thank you, councillors. The 4-year delivery program. I think there was an amendment on that.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We'll debate that one. Item 6, is there any discussion on item 6? Standard report on caretaker provisions, etc. No debate on item 6. Thank you. Item 7, outcomes of dog off-leash trial. It's a good result. Oh, Councillor Maggio. Well, two questions here, Councillor Maggio and Lane, so we'll debate that one. Item 8, Meadowbank Traffic and Transport Study, funding from the state, which is great. Is there any debate on that one?
I have a question.
Okay. Pull it out. Item 9. I think
Yes.
Councillor Pedersen, yep. Notice of motion 1, I think we need to discuss, Councillor Maggio. I think there'll be discussion. Notice of motion 2, notice of motion 3, notice of motion 4, notice of motion 5, notice of motion 6, notice of motion 7. Is there any discussion on notice of motion 8, Bay Drive Meadowbank bus service?
What's that, number 8? Just in there?
Notice of motion 8, yeah, I'll just give you a minute, Councillor Maggio. That's Councillor Purcell's notice of motion 8.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I said last time. Yeah, happy to
Support. Thank you. No debate on that one. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Notice of motion 9. Any discussion on that one? Councillor Gordon, that's yours.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Lane wants to discuss it. Thank you. Notice of motion 10. Councillor Pedersen, men's health and suicide prevention strategy. Is there any discussion on that?
That's fantastic. Well done.
Okay, Nom 10 is without debate. Congratulations. Notice of motion 11. Is there any discussion on that one?
Fantastic one.
Councillor Kim, is your hand up for notice of motion 11? No,
Fantastic. What
it's down. Nothing from Councillor Kim. Okay, so notice of motion 11 is without debate. Confidential items, councillors. We've got item 11, the lease to operate tennis court facilities. Is there any discussion on that one?
Yes.
There is, okay. Item 12, lease of the kiosk in Ryde Aquatic. Is there any discussion on that?
Yes, I think I've something on that too.
Yes.
Okay. And advice on court actions, we will not move without discussion. Okay, so we've got item 2, item 3, item 3.3, item 4, item 4.5, item 6, notice of motion 8, 10 and 11.
We can join notice of motion 2 and mine 4 together because it's similar motion.
Okay, and we'll move a motion that we debate that concurrently. Yes, that's a good idea, Councillor Udelian. Thank you. Maybe just add that as a part B, please, that we debate items, notice of motion 2 and 4 concurrently. Catherine, please. Add a part B.
Notice motion 2 and 4.
Debated concurrently.
The only substantial difference is just the amount.
Yep, I think that's a good idea to debate it together, Councillor Udelian. Okay. Thank you. Okay, is that moved by you, Councillor Maggio? You've got your hand up. Are you happy to move that?
Well,
Just moving items without debate.
yeah, okay.
Okay, and Councillor Kim, are you seconding that? I've got your hand up there, but I can't see you, so I'm not sure.
You're happy with that?
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's vote, please, councillors. That's carried, councillors. Just once that's clear, we're moving to item 4.3, which is the update to the statement of business ethics. And that's the Chair of Works, is it? Or Finance and Governance, sorry. Chair of Finance and Governance, who's the Chair of Finance and Governance? Councillor Clifton, are you moving that recommendation?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Through you, Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Gordon. Thank you. Okay, councillors, is there any debate? Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question to the relevant staff. Is there another, when I looked at this issue, it's obviously very positive. I just wondered about when we talk about supply chains, matters to do with modern slavery, is that covered in a separate policy, or is that something that can and should be addressed through the business ethics statement?
I'm advised Mark Eady Mr. Eady might want to take that question. Thank you, Mr. Eady.
He's on mute.
Have issues with your sound, Mr. Eady? He doesn't look like. it doesn't look like you've got your microphone connected. It's not seemingly coming through.
Should we maybe revisit the matter when he's back?
Yeah, we might, we can see you and you're not on mute, Mr. Eadie. We just can't hear you. So maybe a set of headphones or might pick up a better microphone for you. Why don't we defer this matter till the just before confidential? I'll give Mr. Eadie some time to perhaps sort out his microphone issues. And if we can't get an answer, we might have to defer it until the next council meeting. So let's just move to defer this to the final item on the agenda prior to confidential session, please. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Purcell and Clifton. Will you please vote on deferral? We've got Councillor Zhao, Councillor Maggio,
Yeah, he's not.
Councillor Majali,
Could you move the screen across here? He's absent.
okay, that's 11 votes for. It's unanimous, thank you. Okay, we now go to item 5, once we've got a clear screen. Okay. Do we have a mover or do we have an alternate motion for item 5, which is the 4-year delivery program? Councillor Purcell, moved. Councillor Gordon, seconded.
Can we read it?
Item 5 is just the 4-year delivery plan.
That was items without debate.
Yep, there we go.
That's it.
Councillor Purcell.
Yes, I'd just like to state that with the extensive report and the following feedback, that I'd like to replace Part A, please. And this is the one that we all had to declare an interest in, be it insignificant, non-pecuniary. But I believe we have had some trouble as political groups finding spaces, and I would just like to clarify that with this amendment. And please excuse my illness this evening. It's non-COVID, but I'm not at my best, and I'll even let a lot of those toadying cries against lefties through to the keeper tonight. So you're on notice, Councillor Brown.
Luckily, we are not replacing you with another councillor, no?
You just try it, Councillor. So I sent that through before. Can we replace? So we can read it. I think it's in everybody at this table's interest.
Can't see it. It's not up.
No, we're waiting. It's as simple as that. There's no shenanigans. I'm just trying to give us more places, us as politicians. a little bit of leeway with where we meet. And that's, please, registered political groups. Thank you.
So you're just replacing part A with that, Councillor Purcell, is that what you're doing? Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Councillor Delian.
No, that's not good. You can't have that. Vote for this. It's got to be neutral.
You're on mute, Councillor Delian, sorry. You're on mute, Councillor Delian.
Yeah, I will be against this, reason being that we political parties, we are excluding other smaller groups or independents, which they are even have more difficult times campaigning and finding resources for their meeting places. And political parties have always been good in funding. They find always their sponsors, donors, and I think it will continue. Status quo is good. I will not accept any favor as a political party member. We should go according to the council officer's recommendation. We don't consider them as a non-profit organization.
Just for clarity, I don't think a registered political group excludes anybody. Is that correct, Councillor Purcell? Like it would not exclude.
No, it's I said it, Mr. Mayor. It's a registered.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was just Labor and Liberal or Greens or Colothumpians.
Registered political groups. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Brown.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Fine.
I have a question to Councillor Purcell. Why does the Labor Party have trouble finding venues and making bookings, as you stated in your opening address?
I actually don't. I'll take the question on notice, but I'm fine, thank you, Councillor.
Well, you did not make that statement, Councillor Purcell. You said that it is difficult.
I did say, if you were listening, ears open, eyes forward, that very good, sir, that following the feedback within the report, and that's why I brought this to the table.
Only 2 people.
Councillor Lane.
And can we find out who those people are? Because if they're both members of the Labor Party, and if the Labor Party have made a submission and now wish to benefit their own members who are implored upon to write, then can we know that by way of disclosure, please? So I'd like to know that before we vote on this, because I'd like to know who the individuals are and therefore if any person has a conflict that they need to declare.
I think interests have been declared, Councillor Brown.
No, that's for a different reason. We've all declared that we're members of a political party. If some members of a political party are compromised or have a conflict of interest, which is a separate conflict, because they are known to the person who was written in and they are in the same party and the same branch of the same party, I would have thought that that is a separate issue for which we need to have bearing. And that might well motivate the need to invent this new category of category 2, not-for-profit. Not-for-profit, by the way, is a delegated term for which political parties don't fit in that term, by the way.
Councillor Lane.
We're not a not-for-profit entity. So even if you wanted to do this, I'd suggest you think about it, Councillor Purcell, and change that category if you don't mind, and even have one for political parties or political representatives, because we are not a not-for-profit organisation and we shouldn't confuse the two. It doesn't help not-for-profit organisations if we put political parties in the mix just because it's for our convenience. Would you like to change that part A?
Look, in the goodwill that is this council, this functioning council, I will withdraw that amendment.
So just withdraw part A.
Yep, just replace A to what it was originally.
Well, it was kind of nothing. So it was a council consider feedback, which I thought you did, but I don't think we need A at all. I don't think we need A at all. I thought Councillor Purcell considered it and provided a solution, but doesn't have the
Another
support,
question, if
obviously,
I
so that's
You
that.
can get rid of A, correct?
Yeah, A doesn't need to be there. Are you happy with that, councillor Gordon, just before we continue? Yep, okay, thank you.
If I could ask a question of the General Manager, please.
Sure.
Thank you. I wonder, I'd like to receive the correspondence and know who's made a submission on that component. How do I do that, please, General Manager? Do I need to lodge a GIPO with you, or can I lodge that through the standard means?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you could just lodge a request for the help desk and ask for that information.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I have a question too.
Yes, we've got councillor Maggio next, and then councillor Dillon, and then councillor Pedersen. Just wary, councillors, that seemingly the contentious item has been removed, and unless there's any other new items on there, then we can progress. Councillor Maggio.
Yeah, I do have a new item, and I'd like to thank Councillor Purcell for bringing forth that particular. I actually would have liked to leave that in, but quite put a little tweak on it. So I will be moving an amendment with that Part A, and I think it's quite clear that the political parties do fund well, and as an independent, we do struggle. So that's life, and I'm happy to deal with it. But I'm going to quite be very blunt here this evening. I'm going to move an amendment as a Part A or Part D that no political parties be provided any acceptance to any City of Ryde facilities or events. I clearly am a strong advocate that no political party should be involved in any City of Ryde events and any facilities. It is clear that this is neutral territory. When you are elected as a councillor, you need to be neutral. Your neutral, bipartisan approach should be the community. This should not be the Labor Party, Liberal Party and Green. And clearly, you saw that tonight. Clearly, it was a political stunt to push forward a facility used by the Labor Party. So clearly, let's put this amendment, let's clear the decks, and then
Councillor Maggio, that amendment, I'm just going to rule that amendment out of order. It's irrelevant to fees and charges.
You can't rule out of order.
It's out of order. We're talking about fees and charges here, councillor. That's a policy position.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
No, but this is a fees and charges item.
I'm asking that little.
Yeah. So that's we're talking about fees, charges. I'm ruling it out of order.
Well,
if you'd like
to move, what he says, I can't understand what he said.
If you'd like to move a motion, you can move a motion at a future council meeting.
I will ask through the chair, through our general counsel, if this matter is unlawful, where I've moved in relation to fees and charges, that no political parties be provided any acceptance, that is no fees to be charged, and no acceptance of political parties to be involved in facilities, booking facilities, and being part of City of Ryde events.
Councillor Maggio,
part of the delivery program.
Under the Code of Meeting Practices, Chair, I can rule items out of order based on relevance. The amendment that I've made the ruling, Councillor Maggio. The General Counsel can confirm that I've made the ruling. I've made the ruling. That's up to my interpretation. I've found it out of order.
That's ridiculous. You've got to have a reason why to rule it out of order.
I gave you a reason. It's irrelevant. We're talking about fees and
Why
charges.
didn't you remove Part A? Why didn't you remove Part A? That was irrelevant.
Because it was about fees and charges.
So is mine.
No, it's not. It's about it's a policy position on who council allows and who doesn't allow at events and right things. So that's my ruling, Councillor Maggio. We'll carry on.
No,
Councillor Udelian.
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
Councillor Udelian.
Look, if we are continuing to give preference to political parties, I have to declare that's a pecuniary interest, and I have to go out of the room. I can't discuss that because it's a pecuniary interest.
Well, that doesn't seem to be on the table anymore, Councillor Udelian, but that's a matter for you.
Well, it looks like your amendment is just giving preference to the political parties.
The amendment's been withdrawn, Councillor Udelian.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, okay. All right, we've gone around and around. We've got item 5 here. We can vote on that, please. That's 9 votes for and 2 against. The next item, councillors, is item 7, the outcomes of the dog off-leash trial. Once the vote's cleared, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by councillor Pedersen, seconded. Councillor Maggio, thank you. Councillor Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy with. Oh, I've got some reverb. Is that stopped? Yes. Very happy with the changes that have come back from the trial. I was very concerned about the wildlife on Kissing Point Beach, where the off-leash dog swim area was happening. And it's good to see that Councillor Maggio has retreated with his tail between his legs in regards to the debate that we had there, because I believe he can agree with me that that is the wrong place for it. And it's not very far, as I said before in the last debate that we had on this, it's not very far to the other area for dog owners to swim their dogs in Bennelong Park. And I know that the community in Gladesville are going to be very happy that Monash Oval is still available to them. So thank you to the staff for their hard work on this trial, and I appreciate that it has taken 6 months, but I think most people will be happy with the outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pedersen. Councillor Maggio is next. You're on mute, Councillor Maggio. You're on mute, Councillor Maggio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do welcome the staff's inclusion in the report in relation to this dog strategy. It was put forward by myself and supported by many councillors, and quite clearly there was some concerns about Kissing Point Park, as Councillor Pedersen has highlighted, but you can't reflect from the support at Kissing Point Park was 45%. So the only key points that raised from that concern was the relocation, which I was quite happy to accept that and move forward. The other issue that I'd like to put forward, yeah, Monash Park's fantastic. There was a lot of support for that, as majority of the dog owners really like Monash Park. The other issue I'd like to put forward to Mr. Mayor, and that is a question to Mr. Rylands or perhaps Mr. Simon James, if they're online, if I could just move a slight inclusion into this motion moved by Councillor Pedersen and myself.
I believe Mr. James is online.
Mr. James, is he online?
Yes, Councillor.
In relation to this strategy, there is a big appetite in relation to Metapaint, the far end of Metapaint, where the old unused hockey field is being utilised as a dog off leash area. Is there a possibility that I could move in this item that we can consult with the residents and the dog owners who are petitioning at this moment to have that as a fenced off area? So I'd like to just raise this in this particular motion, that if we could consult the neighbours and all those particular owners if a fence can be installed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor, you're more than welcome, obviously, to move an amendment to include consultation for that particular site to be changed to a fenced area. I would certainly recommend that consultation be undertaken before staff resolved any changes to the way that area is managed.
I'm happy to move that way. Thank you very much. Thanks. Happy to work with you. And
so part D, you're suggesting, Councillor Maggio, that council consult the community on fencing off. I'm not sure if it's unused. It's probably underused, isn't it, rather than unused?
Yeah. Yeah, it's underused for the hockey, but it's mainly used for the dog owners. So I don't really know what area it's called. I think it's just the far end of
Meadowbank Park. What's that road out there?
Yeah.
Andrew Street.
Sorry, what's that, Councillor Lane?
Andrew Street.
Andrew Street, yep. The Andrew Street end.
Thanks.
And
Thanks,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, sorry.
I'm done. Councillor Lane can talk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. James.
My only concern, Councillor Maggio, is that we've just master planned the entire park, and that was pretty exhaustive. I'll let Councillor Lane go, but I'd just ask Mr. James some questions on that when Councillor Lane's done. We'll go from there. Councillor Lane?
Well, I probably need to ask first if that amendment's acceptable to Councillor Pedersen.
Councillor Pedersen, you happy to leave that there for now?
I'm happy to leave it there for now until we hear from Mr. James.
Okay.
Can I maybe just comment first on the substance of the report, and then I might deal with the proposed amendment as well. Can I just ask a quick question, maybe to Mr. James or to Mr. Rylands? The rationale for removing the Memorial Park section seems to be on the basis that there was some negative feedback. However, when I look further down in the report on page 61, it actually shows that there's a 50% of respondents that support it, and then a further 17% that support it with some changes. So how did we come to the view that we shouldn't proceed, given that it appears as though more respondents are in principle supportive than those that are against?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, the residents that supported that location with changes, those changes weren't feasible to implement, as they were changes such as extending the fencing to make it a fully fenced area, and therefore on the basis that council was providing a dog swimming area over near the Bennelong Park area, staff have recommended to not proceed with the swimming area at Memorial Park and just have the one swimming area in the LGA.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think that so in fact, I think I may have even made a submission on behalf of a resident about this, and I understand the requirement. The fencing is inadequate as it currently stands. I don't think people are so unreasonable as to think that it has to be fully contained, as the report says. I think people realise that you can't obviously put a fence out into the middle of the channel, and that, of course, you know, dogs that are off leash could be able to run through the bush. I think the concern is that there are currently some pretty large holes in the fence that make it almost useless, really, as a fence. So I think surely there's a compromise to be struck between what's currently there and a full containment, which I concede is probably not feasible. I mean, was any work done to? I struggle to be able to support taking it out when it seems as though, you know, maybe some small extensions or maybe even some further planting of some thicker shrubs or foliage could actually serve the same purpose. It just seems silly, having gone through the motions of trialling it for, and given that there's still more than half the respondents are supportive, to walk away from it. Did we consider some of those, maybe not full containment, but still improved containment than the status quo?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff certainly did consider very seriously the feedback that was provided. In the consultation report that I'm looking at, there was only 33% support for the site at Meadowbank Park and 17% support with changes. It says
50% on the report that I have.
So that's 50% support with so it's a total that's broken down, councillor, to 33% support the location as is, and a further 17% support those with changes. So that a total of 50%. And while there was 48% of respondents against that location.
And so the other 2% was uncommitted.
That's correct. That's correct. So the fencing that was down there was actually new fencing that was installed at the commencement of the trial. So it was certainly a good functioning fencing. And look, it was a range of views provided as part of the feedback, but on the basis that the 17% that supported it with changes, staff didn't think those changes were feasible. We've made the recommendation not to proceed with that location, but of course, it's a matter for council.
Right. Councillor Pedersen and Maggio, can I ask if you would be partial to, I'm loath to be that, even if notwithstanding it's 50 to 48, it's pretty close, but notwithstanding that, we know that there's such a high demand for these facilities, and I agree with Councillor Maggio. Meadowbank Park is an enormous space, and there are very few designated areas to have dogs run off leash. This issue is only going to continue to grow. Would you be partial to perhaps? I don't want to put you in a tricky position where we just strike it off. I know there's some work to do, but would you be sorry to just keep it in there and leave it as is? There's some work to do, but would you be partial on that particular site to potentially maybe even extending to doing some of the updates that are required, and maybe extending the trial for another 6 or 12 months to see if some improvements make it more workable before we kill it altogether? Would that be something you could support as an amendment?
That sounds pretty reasonable, Councillor Lane. Councillor Pedersen and Maggio.
Yeah, I mean, I think the community is pretty divided on that. I have sent where people aren't very happy with the look of it. But as dog owners, I've heard people say that they like it, and I don't. Yeah, of course, Councillor Lane, I'd be happy to put that in.
Well, that's great. So, I mean, I'm happy to work with you on the wording, but I think if it's okay to the staff, something to the effect. Sorry, I've just lost the motion. Let me find it. Oh goodness, what page is it on? Oh, here. That we replace Part B with that council extend the Memorial Park trial for a further 12 months.
12 months, yep. 12 months. Undertake further works on the site.
Undertake further works to improve its containment. Something like that.
I think 6 months. I don't think 12 months. Because we had 6 months.
9 and strike in the middle.
I think
12 months is fine. 12 months is fine. 12 months is fine.
Once the works are done, Councillor Pedersen, they've got to be costed, put through. I think that'll give staff the time to install it and give the community a chance to respond to it a bit more. I think 12 months is a good spot. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Pedersen. That being the case, I'm very happy with that. Thank you. Once it's sort of gone, it's hard to revisit, and I just think we can probably do some work to make that a bit better before we get rid of it. And if I can just speak briefly on Part D and support that, this is a site. Shamefully, when I was a community member, I remember I've obviously moved now, but at the time I lived quite close, and the period that council did have that area off Andrew Street enclosed was the best I've seen it in my time living in the area, which is all my life, in terms of utilisation. It didn't infringe upon the use of it at the weekend for sport, and I just can't begin to emphasise the number of dog owners that are just not confident letting dogs off in an unenclosed space, and so having that area there looked, and obviously we have to consult. I understand that we wouldn't just whack up fences, but The time that it was there was so prosperous, I think, for the users of it. To then have it sort of torn down almost without notice, and it was not this council, it was many years ago, but it really was a huge shock, and it just really hasn't been quite the same since then. That park is located very close to the road. It's a busy road. Cars go pretty quickly down there. In fact, at the moment, we've got a speed monitor because we know cars speed, and just the amount of near misses for dogs and also kids running out after the dogs if they leave the park. I've seen it, and it's pretty bad. I would be very supportive of exploring re-enclosing that area because it's a logical location. We're not introducing dogs to a setting where they haven't already been. They're already there. It's just about making it more secure and more desirable for others who, perhaps aren't confident. So I'd be very supportive of that inclusion as well. And I'm very happy with this motion as it's currently written. Thanks.
Councillor Pedersen, you've got your hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to ask Mr. James some questions about the trial. Just in terms of, the shared use of sports ground and dog recreation, have there been any issues with dog poop with the sporting groups? Because I know regardless of how hard you try, and particularly with commercial operations, they miss one here and there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, from time to time there are certainly complaints from the community in terms of dog owners not cleaning up after themselves. There's also feedback from our maintenance staff in relation to that issue. So yeah, it certainly it is an ongoing challenge to educate dog owners to ensure that they respect the other park users.
And what sort of signage do we have in regards to, I've seen some, I can't off the top of my head remember exactly what it says, or whether it's just an image, an infographic. What sort of signage do we have in place for our dog owners in regards to those shared areas and picking up their dog litter?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Council, we don't have any specific signage for that matter. What Council does do is provide dog bags in those off-leash locations. So we try and make it as easy as possible for dog owners to make sure they're cleaning up after their dogs.
Right, okay. And one more question in regards to Andrew Street at Meadowbank. You said it was used as a hockey field. How often? It's not used at all anymore by a hockey club, or is it used? How often is it used?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Pedersen, off the top of my head, I would have to check how regularly it's booked. It is certainly used infrequently. The area is not floodlit, so it's not used during the week. If it is used, it would be used on Saturdays. And I will just add, for the information of councillors, in the adopted Meadowbank master plan, there is an identified fenced dog off-leash area on the other side of the park, over near the Eastern Canal. So that's intended as funding becomes available to relocate the dog off-leash area to that space.
So this would be an interim measure, perhaps?
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor. So there is some funding identified in year 3 of the current delivery plan for those works. So it would be a temporary measure until those works are completed. Okay, so when you consult with the community, will you be bringing back the cost of the fencing? And because we wouldn't want to replicate that, that's all, in 3 years' time. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council wishes staff to come back with a report detailing the costs, so certainly happy to do so.
Thank you.
Mr. James, just on your comments about the master plan, well aware of the need for a fenced off dog area in and around the Meadowbank Park precinct and support it. My only concern is that you've mentioned that the community have been consulted, a site has been selected. I I'd want to make that very clear in the consultation that perhaps this, so what this is, are we suggesting the previously agreed to location is therefore made redundant if we put it around Andrew Street, or is this just a temporary measure, or are we putting it at Andrew Street instead of the Eastern Canal? I mean, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to add 2 fenced off areas? I mean, what was Andrew Street site used for in the master plan as well? That's another question. So I guess I'd like some commentary on that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So that area of the park in the master plan is identified for future passive use. So there's infrastructure such as basketball courts and an extension of the playground in that area, as well as maintaining the open grassed area for active sport. I will advise council that that stage of the master plan is not funded yet, so that works is beyond the 4-year horizon of the delivery plan, and staff are currently going through the forward planning process for the works that I mentioned before over on the eastern side of the park, where the future proposed dog off leash area is to be.
Okay, and if we were to swap those locations, would those other uses, passive recreation, basketball, be able to be put on the other location, and then the Andrew Street site be the permanent dog park home? Is that possible, or is that something you'd have to take on notice?
Look, Mr. Mayor, I would take that on notice. I would say I'll just make the comment that a lot of work went into the master plan and the identifying of suitable locations. So, yeah, I think due consideration would have been given to co-locating those pieces of infrastructure close by, and hence determined not suitable. And that's why the final master plan had the dog off leash area over on the other side of the park.
Okay, and is what's stopping us putting that dog off leash area as intended on the master plan now, or as part of this process? I mean, why are we consulting on Andrew Street when could we just put one in the area as identified?
Mr. Mayor, the work over on the eastern side of the park is quite significant. To deliver those stages involves raising the field levels to bring them all up to a consistent level on that area of the park. So unfortunately, it's just not as simple as installing the fencing. There's other interrelated work involved that is quite significant.
Okay, would it be an option if the community accepted that it goes on Andrew Street and then it's moved once that other work is completed?
Mr. Mayor, we could consult in that fashion.
Okay. Councillor Maggio and Pedersen, that's my only concern. There's significant demand for basketball courts, passive recreation and all that other stuff. I wouldn't want this to replace that. However, I think as an interim measure, it's ideal. And if we're on the same page there, I've no problem in supporting the motion.
Absolutely. So perhaps we could change that, Councillor Lane, to read the council consult with the community on constructing an interim fenced area around Andrew Street Meadowbank until the eastern fenced dog area is constructed.
My only,
No, I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, Roy.
Well, that's fine. I've got my hand up. So if we're going to go by
Sure. After you, Councillor, that's my concern, and I'm happy to hear you, but that's my concern. We've done all this work on the master plan. It's been overwhelmingly well received. There's as much a need for basketball courts and passive recreation as a dog park. So that's my only concern. So if we can fit all that in, then that's great. But yeah, cool. Councillor Maggio.
I wouldn't even use the word constructing. I think you should just leave it the way it is. The council consult with the community in regards to a fenced in area. What you're doing is giving them hope. What you need to do is consult. As I've already mentioned, there's a petition already started. So is there a need for that fenced area? You could have both, because you have one on the eastern side and that side, it's actually too far to take your dogs all the way around. So you're actually compromising both their locations. One is a small area and one is and clearly, if you're going to have basketball courts and children facilities, Mr. Mayor, then clearly you need a fenced area for dogs.
I think the problem with 2 dog areas is that you lose the basketball and passive areas. That's my concern. I don't think we need 2 dog areas. I think anyway, but that's.
Well, let's leave it up to the community. Let's consult.
That's
You're only
right.
consulting, and I agree with you. Let's just come back. You can put a report there to come back whenever you suit, whenever it suits. I'm happy to even have that on there.
Yeah. Councillor Lane.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just on that, I sort of agree. I just wondered if the way it's written, it kind of locks it into only being an interim measure. Once we do the consultation, the community might prefer that site. They might want to keep it. They might want 2 dogs. Maybe there's a new area identified for the basketball, or maybe there's a way that the 2 can coexist. If it's looked at. So I just am concerned that if we say strictly in the motion that it's to be used as an interim measure, that's the extent of it, and perhaps following the feedback, that may need to change. So maybe an interim measure is one option, but it's not necessarily the only option. So yeah, I mean, maybe as it was is fine, or maybe you could say, sorry, Roy.
I would remove the word interim. You've got to remove the word interim. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, once you do the consultation, it will sort of give guidance to it anyway. And through this discussion, I think staff know that one of the options that we'd be interested in is it being interim. But we probably shouldn't preempt what the community says.
Mr. James, I think, are you happy to make reference to what was agreed to in the master plan and sort of have options there, just so it's not because I think some people might support this, but not at the expense of what was originally planned there. Do you know what I mean? I think if we're open and honest about what the master plan has already been resolved, then people can make an informed decision.
Mr. Mayor, I would certainly recommend consulting with reference to the adopted master plan.
Yeah, okay. Council consult with the community with reference to the existing master plan in regards to a fenced area around Andrew Street. Is that?
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's good.
Yeah, because obviously, Councillor Maggio, that they have already been consulted on where they want to have the park and what they want in preference. I think that's good wording. Are you okay with that?
We've removed interim, Councillor Maggio, so then I think that captures all our concerns and our wishes, and I think we'll get a good consultation. Yeah. Yep. All right. Great. Done. Councillor Lane. All good?
Yeah, no, all good.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I still got my hand up. No, all good. Thanks.
Let's vote, please, councillors. Good work. Councillor Majali, thank you. That's unanimous, councillors. Sorry, Councillor Majali. Is Councillor Majali present? No, he's not. So that is unanimous. Sorry, I've been on mute. Is there any discussion on item 8, councillors? Apologies. Just realised I was on mute.
Oh, yeah, I didn't,
Yeah.
Councillor Lane had a question.
Item 8. Councillor Lane, I've got you as mover and Councillor Kim as seconder. Is that okay? Because I was on
Yeah,
mute.
that's fine. I think Councillor Maggio's got a question.
Yeah, sure. Item 8.
Item 8.
State funding on the Meadowbank traffic study, which is great.
Now, who provided the, could I ask who provided the funding?
Sorry, just a bit of feedback there, Councillor Maggio. Who provided the funding? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Transport for New South Wales.
In relation to the, could we please write a letter to them, Mr. Mayor, and the allocated minister and thank them for their funding? I think it's appropriate that we do that. Thank you, sir. Could you just use the appropriate word?
Happy to write that, Councillor Maggio. It's always great to get state and federal support.
So I'll probably ask the Liberals to assist in the Minister of Transport, because I'm not familiar.
And throw the local member in there too.
I'm not yet. Okay, well that's even better. Oh, you've turned the light. You could get more funding now if you assist. Writing all these letters.
I'm not his cousin, Councillor Maggio.
Yeah, well, we won't get into that. I know you did something about it.
No, this is great. No, the more funding, the better. We got federal funding for some playgrounds. We got state funding for this. It's wonderful. Let's keep it up.
Cool.
Yep, that's it. Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Done. Thank you, sir.
All right, let's vote, please, councillors. That's unanimous, councillors. We now move to item 9, which is the traffic and parking matters. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Seconded. Councillor Purcell, thank you. Now, I think I've got Councillor Clifton with a hand up. That's down. Councillor Pedersen had a question or query about this.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to draw attention to the Part G, which is Cutler Parade, North Ryde, the parking restrictions there. I did go along to a meeting with some of the people from this church in regards to the lack of parking for disabled people. They have had a problem stopping to let people out on a Sunday to get into the church. There are a number of people in the congregation there, and I'm not a member of their congregation, but I do know a lot of local residents who go to that church, and some of them are quite disabled and required to be dropped off. Some of them drive there and have to get themselves from their car into the church. Now, we're only talking about Sundays, and the staff did obviously make contact with them and talk to them about what they required. And I think the 11-metre area of no parking, wedding and funeral vehicles accepted that would be installed outside the church is great for dropping off disabled people and then going and parking somewhere. But there are also those people who are partially disabled who require to park their car close to the church and get themselves in there. So what they really require is, in addition to the no parking for wedding and funeral vehicles, they really do need a couple of extra disabled parking spots for Sundays only. And that's when the commercial precinct down there is not needing as many parking spots because their busiest time is lunchtime at that group of shops at Blenheim. And of course, that's when the church meets, is on Sunday. So I wanted to amend this part A that there be an 11 metre area of no parking for wedding and funerals vehicles accepted be installed on the southern side of Cutler Parade between the driveway access to North Ryde Community Church, the rear access to the Blenheim Road shops, and that 2 disabled parking spaces outside the church on Cutler Parade are available on Sunday between 7 and 10 p.m. So it's all day Sunday that disabled people can park there. And that staff investigate the extension, this is something that they would like as well, the extension of 2-hour to 3-hour parking on Sundays in the car park outside the community centre. Because it takes longer for them if they have the service and then they have their morning tea or whatever. It's not long enough for them in the parking area as well, where there is a lot, there are a couple of disabled parking spaces.
Thank you, Councillor Pedersen. Mover and seconder, are you happy to accept that change to Cutler Parade? I think it was Gordon and Purcell. Yes, thumbs up, thumbs up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Maggio. You're on mute. So, oh, you're done? Okay. That's all. All right, councillors. Thank you. We'll vote on item 9. That's unanimous, councillors. Notice of motion 1, deferred notice of motion move, just wants this to clear. Moved by Councillor Maggio. Could I have a seconder, please? Are you present, Councillor Kim? Sorry, yes, you are. Okay, seconded, Councillor Kim. Councillor Maggio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's clear that when the report was provided by council, and many councillors advocated for the inclusion to install villas and townhouses to keep our current policy in place. It seems all of a sudden the councillors are reading the report and not supporting what they said at that current council meeting. I recall that the majority of the councillors supported the inclusion of townhouses and villas to remain, and there was a vote to present a letter, which clearly I never saw, and I did ask for it through help desk, never saw the letter to go to the current planning minister to advocate for the community to include townhouses and villas, our current policy. I've had numerous phone calls in relation to this particular motion that I put forward. I think we should implement the current policy and have townhouses and villas. Many of the councils outline the reason why, the elderly and the people who are separated, for single mothers. So clearly this is a very logical motion that should be put forward to the community and ask them if they clearly would like to include townhouses and villas, and then we could advocate again to the minister with a resounding result that will probably provide an exemption for this city to continue what we do best. Our current policy in relation to townhouses and villas is ideal, and it'd be sad to remove this current policy with council. So therefore, I'm looking for councillors to support what they said at that meeting. Clearly, if they don't support this, clearly then they're just hoodwinking the community, clearly saying one thing and not voting for the other. So clearly this is put in place, and clearly the motion was again rejected by the general manager based on a report with him. I've tried to have some meetings with the planning director, but somehow we've missed each other. But clearly I'm looking for support. I think this is a very logical motion and looking to continue the strategy in having villas and townhouses in our city, which will be beneficial for the community.
Councillor Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know why we are opening up this debate again. Our staff and our council have spent so much time on this already, and the community have made it very clear they do not want manor houses, flats in our low density areas, and outlined in the staff report that's what will happen. There's also huge financial implications that come with the changes.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. That is incorrect. I have never said manor houses. You need to use the correct.
Councillor Maggio, there's no point of order, as the report says.
No,
as the report says, Councillor Maggio, we can't pick and choose what we allow and what we don't allow. We've been given a very clear signal, and that letter did get sent off. I did send the letter, and I'm happy to provide it to you. I did send it because yes, I agree. We agree with I would imagine most of us agree that we would like villas to remain. Don't forget we went to court to allow villas to remain and we lost. So that's a signal from the state government that there's no leeway here. It's either one in or it's either all in or nothing. And I think that's what the report says. So it's not a point of order. It's Councillor Maggio, it's not a point of order. You've opened the debate. I'm going to allow Councillor Pedersen to continue her debate because it's not a point of order. Yes, you can have your right.
Thank you.
It is my understanding, it's been made clear that if we have villas, it opens these zones up for terraces, manor houses, or for flats, whatever you want to call them. And I can tell you right now that none of that would be welcomed by residents who live in these areas. They will feel the loss of their amenity immediately by overwhelming development. And seriously, I don't even know why you're bringing this up now, Councillor Maggio. We've been through this debate. We went over it and over it. We made it possible for the organic increase of dwelling diversity through a slight increase in the lots that would be available across the city for duplex. I can't support this. And as it says in the report, this will have a lot of cost and logistical implications for staff. We'll have to go out and start the work all over again. It will undermine the relationship that we have with planning where we've got so far. I can't support it. I'm sorry.
Are you moving the staff recommendation, Councillor Pedersen?
I'd like to move the staff recommendation that council continue advocating for outcomes consistent with the planning Ryde local strategic planning statement and the City of Ryde local housing strategy in its regular meetings with the Department of Planning and Industry and Environment and the Greater Sydney Commission and in relevant state policy consultations.
Okay, you're seconding that, Councillor Purcell? I've got your hand up there. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Purcell.
I just wanted to agree with Councillor Pedersen. I think it's we cannot choose. We've known this. We've been down this track. I could ask staff. We could get the history of it. It's a non-event, so I'm against the motion and I'm for the amendment.
Yep. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Maggio for bringing this motion, which is extremely important and important for our community, about the planning and about the future and about dream of our community. I think Councillor Pedersen says he can't understand why we're bringing this back. Well, we're bringing it back because the community asked us to bring it back. I mean, I don't know which section of community you guys are talking to. The community I'm talking to, and Councillor Maggio, I'm sure agrees, is that they would like to see more housing diversity range of housing forms that's available in Ryde Council, and that is the message. That's the message I'm getting from the community. And I think I've been through, expand this in my experience, that moving from a unit The next thing is to move up to the villa, to the townhouse, and possibly standalone house. There's a huge difference in the cost between living in an apartment, living in a villa, townhouse, and in the standalone houses or duplex. Sometimes from going from the apartment to duplex, almost double the price. I mean, you can buy a block of unit for about $750, $800. But for you to buy something duplex around the Eastwood, you're looking at $1.8, $1.9 million. So we have this middle class, young, aspiring middle class people living in Ryde, probably come here because there's a good, good transport, good environment, is a good location, and they come and live here. They like to call this place home, but often they get squeezed out of the area because there's no affordable houses where they can move up as a stepwise thing without breaking their back or getting $1 million loan, which is not easy for people. Therefore, I think it's in the interest of the future of Ryde that we talk about diverse housing types, and we've got to talk about how we can provide more affordable housing. Not affordable housing as in houses we build so that people who can't afford can live, but housing that a young, aspiring, middle-class person, just like me, 15 years ago, can actually afford. I mean, the only reason I was able to still live in this area is because I was living in an apartment that I only had to save up extra, I think $100,000 at the time to go on to buy a villa. And then I had to save up extra couple of $1,000 or get extra loan to go up to a duplex. And then from there, it's a lot easier for you to accumulate a little bit more money and buy a house. But for you to go, expect a middle class, young, it's a young, I guess, or middle-aged person to go from apartment straight up to the duplex, it's almost impossible. So I think it is important that we do provide an affordable means of housing for an average Australian population, especially in Ryde, because I call Ryde a heart of a middle class community. Now, having said that, I appreciate if everyone can support this, but also I just want to go back and ask a question to the staff through you, Mr. Mayor. Now, the letter has gone to the state government seeking whether we can remove the villas and townhouses from the medium housing code. Is that correct?
Part of the motion last year was that we write a letter to the minister. I recall doing that, and I believe it's been sent off. That was in December, I think, maybe even January. Yep.
Yes, Mayor, that was my amendment. That's the amendment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the letter. Yep.
Yeah, so is it possible for us to bring that back? Can you put that in a process of correspondence for the next council meeting so that it's publicly, we can see what you wrote and what response we got?
Well, I don't believe I've received a response, but I could be wrong there, and I'm happy to be corrected. But I'm happy to provide it to you, councillors. Yeah, of course.
Sure. So I have a foreshadowed amendment. Yeah, this amendment. If this wins, motion goes. So I have a foreshadowed amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Clifton.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just have a few questions to staff, if I can. So basically, I guess the biggest issue here is that, that there is a lot of support to have the villas, but not the support to have the manor houses. And my question to staff is it possible? Is there some way that we can have the villas included without having the manor houses? So if staff are there, if they could answer that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there's not. We've done it to death. We went, as the Mayor said, we've gone to court. It's tied up with the definitions that are standard definitions in local environmental plans currently. The time to try this again, if council continues to, first of all, I'd like to say we've never had townhouses, so that's interesting, but if council continues to support villas as a future form of housing, then the time to review that and speak to the minister again would be when we review our local strategic planning statement, and that has to be reviewed in 5 years' time. We did also have a resolution from council to have another look at our local housing strategy when the census for information for 2021 drops. So we have got 2 place markers coming up where we could realistically try again to get villas back into our community, but that would also rely on some definitions that are covered by state legislation to be changed. So it's quite a big asking. And that's what we didn't achieve in the 3 years that we fought the code set.
Yeah, so thank you. So Ms. Code, just to clarify that through you, Mayor, that the definitions, that's under the state legislation. So that you just can't extract, that's what you're saying, from the state legislation, those definitions. Yeah. They are what they are, and they basically can't be changed. That's your point, is it?
Absolutely. The LEP is a standard template with standard definitions.
Yeah, and so basically you're saying that there's nothing this council can do.
Not currently. I wouldn't say that it wouldn't change over time, but not in the current alliteration of the local strategic planning statement and as the state legislation is written currently.
Okay, so I'd just like to make a further comment, Mayor, in that I would support a councillor workshop on this. I think perhaps that would be useful to councillors. So that part I would support, but the rest of it I probably wouldn't, just because from what staff have said. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clifton. That's the crux of my opposition to the motion, is that it's either the entire definition, which we know our community oppose, or nothing. And I think what we have able to do over the past 3 years is strike a balance, and we're able to do that by increasing the amount of lots available for duplexes, and I think that was a good compromise. Our community supported that overwhelmingly, and I think we've struck a good balance there, and I don't think anyone would welcome us reopening consultation on whether or not we allowed the medium density housing code to have full effect in the city of Ryde. I think that would be a mistake, Councillor Maggio, because what you're asking for cannot be achieved, and the only way to allow villas is to allow the entire code set. And we've already been there, we've done that, we've had that debate, and a community are very much opposed to it. So you might want to consider that with your motion, Councillor Maggio, because yeah, it can't be done what you're asking. We've tried it, we've gone to court, we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to win a case. We lost, you know, our compromise was to increase the amount of duplexes, but yeah, we just can't do what you're seeking. And we'll continue to advocate for that position. And once we get an indication that we can, we'll then do it. But right now, we spent 3 years trying to do it, and the stance has been firmly no exemptions. I think wouldn't be wise to go out there again, given the community have participated in this debate for a number of years. Councillor Pedersen, you've spoken. Did you have a question?
Can I get a right of reply?
No, you don't.
I can't. Okay. No. I just did want to say, just a quick comment, that I agree with the premise, with the principle of what Councillor Maggio and Councillor Kim have said in regards to diversity and how important it is. But I do understand the problems with changing it now.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Pedersen. Councillor Kim, do you have a question?
I just want to speak now. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want to quickly make a couple of comments, if you don't mind.
So you've spoken, Councillor Kim, so you've got your further amendment coming up. I'd encourage you to speak on that.
All right, is it one bit long?
You have
one bit long.
Councillor Kim, I'm just wary of time. You've spoken.
One bit long, Mr. Mayor.
No, Councillor Kim, I'm sorry.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Question. What's your question?
Okay. So the question goes to you, Mr. Mayor. You keep saying that you seem to concentrate more on what we can't do and not concentrate on what we can do. Current definition certainly includes all the density includes terrace, villa, as well as manor homes. And currently that's the case. But we are lawmakers. We are asking the state, the minister of the, housing, to actually go and change the law so that it can better suit the community.
Yep.
What it's supposed to do.
We've asked him that.
This is a question. It's a question.
Yeah.
So why are you opposing that we represent the community by doing what we're supposed to, which is to vary, amend, or put new legislation?
Yeah. So answering your question, we don't write the state laws, the state government do. And as per the resolution in December, we did ask for an exemption. We did ask that villas be allowed. That letter was sent. So I think we've acted upon that resolution. And that's my answer to your question.
You've got to chase it up, Mr. Mayor.
I will. Councillor Kim, please don't characterise the last 3 years of opposition to this state government's legislation. We've fought for this exemption for 3 years. I'll continue to fight for it. And I believe Councillor Pedersen's amendment Councillor Pedersen's amendment holds that position too, that we continue to advocate for outcomes. And I think that's a wise amendment here. Councillor Maggio, do you have a question?
I have another question. You're saying you'd like to continue to advocate for the community. Now, this is what this motion is doing. This motion is continuously advocating for the community.
What's your question, Councillor Kim?
Why are you dropping the ball now?
I wouldn't characterise it as dropping the ball, Councillor Kim.
Why are you dropping the ball now, Mr. Mayor? That's the question.
I don't agree with the premise of your question, Councillor Kim. I don't believe I've dropped the ball. Thank you. Councillor Maggio.
Now, you keep saying that our community is opposed to entire definition of medium density. That's clearly not true, Mr. Mayor. What our community is opposed is the manor homes. They're not opposed to villas or terraces. I mean, isn't this a misleading statement?
I don't believe I've misled the public.
You said that. You said that community entirely opposed to the entire definition, and so did Councillor Pedersen, who said.
Councillor Kim, my answer to your question is I haven't misled the community or the council. Next. Thank you, Councillor Maggio.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you my right of reply. Look, there is some.
Just before your right of reply, mate, I've got Councillor Majali, and then we'll go to your right of reply.
Yes, sir.
Oh, all good? You're right, Councillor Majali. You're on mute, Councillor Majali.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question to Miss Code through you, Mayor. Could she explain R3 zoning and whether the City of Ryde has R3 zoning?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do have R3 zoning, and R3 zoning is a medium density zone. We don't have many R3 zones. We are looking at expanding R3 zones. I think for the councillors that attended the West Ryde Master Plan presentation, we were talking there about looking at diversity of housing adjoining town centres as we master plan those town centres. So yeah, we are working on housing diversity and a review of the R3 zones. But with each master plan that we do in terms of the town centres, as is the program agreed with the state government.
So, I mean, I don't agree with what Councillor Maggio is saying, but I don't agree with, other councillors' arguments. I mean, City of Ryde has very limited R3 zoning. We talk about medium density. Now, the problem isn't the state government. The problem is that we don't have and still don't have a well-planned, well-thought out local environmental plan that takes into consideration where are appropriate areas for R3 zoning, where's appropriate for R2 zoning, and where's appropriate for R4, very high density housing. And we haven't done that. And that's what Councillor Maggio is talking about. And I understand his frustration because that's what he's trying to achieve. He's trying to have a debate trying to have that discussion, get that moving about what are the appropriate areas where you can have townhouses, where you can have villas, so you can have that diversity of housing, can have some more affordable options for people to move in. You know, I know a lot of young people, it's very difficult to get into the housing market. You know, you might be able to get a unit, but in terms of something bigger, you know, if you've got a family, you know, a lot of people working from home, couples, both partners might be working from home. They need that extra space so that they can do that comfortably, do it in a manner in which they're productive, and having that diversity so they can have, you know, a bit of a bigger space, a villa, a townhouse, something like that. So really the debate should be about, well, what are appropriate areas where we can create R3 zoning? That's not the state government, that's us. We need to have that debate. We need to drive that discussion, not the state government. I mean, the whole thing about it being on council is so that we lead the discussion. We don't, you know, we don't wait for someone else to dictate. If you're proper, prudent, efficient, and you're doing these things, you'd be doing that. And I understand Councillor Maggio's frustration. That's what he's trying to do. So I won't be supporting you, Councillor Maggio, tonight, but I agree with the sentiment and everything that you're going on about.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Majali, and hopefully we can start that process with the West Ryde Master Plan or some elements of it. I know there's a lot to do there, but I think, yeah, some of those R3 reforms are a good start. Councillor Maggio, your right of reply.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've heard many councillors advocate for the need for villas and townhouses, and clearly Councillor Majali's hit it on the head. We should be driving this. Clearly the amendment is kind of a lip service. The council continue advocating for the outcomes. Fine. Let's put some timeframes there. Let's put some solutions in that amendment. Let's work with that so we can continue to advocate for the community. The community has been misled, Mr. Mayor. I have all the documentation that's gone out to the community in relation to this medium density, and not at one clear moment has the community been told about the removal of townhouses and villas. Now, irrespective if you blame the state government for their negligence on their planning instruments, fine. But look, at the end of the day, Councillor Majali is right. We should be driving this. There is a need for villas and townhouses in relation to this city of Ryde. It's a form of affordable housing. It's a form of affordable housing for especially the market. Has everyone seen the market around the city of Ryde? You know, a house is amazingly expensive to buy. So our younger generation will not afford a house in the city of Ryde. So clearly what is happening, the majority of the children are staying longer and longer with their parents, longer and longer. And then therefore parents are then trying to provide granny flats. So there's a more inclusion of granny flats where we should be providing more of these villas and townhouses in our city. What I'm trying to drive is a solution-based outcome here. What I want is to see that we implement villas and townhouses. Clearly at that meeting, a lot of councillors and even the Senate spoke for the need for this. It is a very imperative that we have this strategy pushed. Irrespective if you support my motion on that, clearly the amendment, if it is supported, we still need to have some type of solutions in the outcomes. It's simple to have continue advocating for outcomes, but let's put it in writing. What type of outcomes can you see? If I can direct that question to Ms. Code in relation to the amendment, and if we can work with the amendment with the motion to try and remove some of the inclusions I've had in the motion, let's work together for this. It's going to benefit our community. If I can direct that question to Ms. Code for you, Mr. Mayor, through the chair, what outcomes over the next 3 months or 6 months do you see your planning section advocating for the community to have villas and townhouses implemented in the city of Ryde?
Well, I think Ms. Code's given that answer. Just the West Ryde Master Plan, Councillor Maggio, that's happening right now, and that involves the proposed introduction of more R3, which I think is a solution that was identified by Councillor Majali. So, Ms. Code, is there anything else that can be done?
Well, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
And the other areas of Ryde, let's just signal out West Ryde.
Well, no, I think what you're missing with respect, Councillor Maggio, is that we've got an agreed strategic planning program with the state government, which is set out in our local strategic planning statement. And that's what we're working on. We're working through, and West Ryde is the current town centre being master planned, which will be followed by Eastwood. So, you know, that's what council agreed with the state government, and we have a local housing strategy still sitting with them waiting to be approved, that the council also adopted. And these policies will be reviewed, as I said. Local strategic planning statement is to be reviewed within 5 years. And the council also made a resolution to have another look at our local housing strategy when the census data drops for 2021.
Okay, a supplementary question. Can we fast track the review? And can we amend what's currently been placed at the planning minister's office?
I wouldn't recommend it, councillor, because we've just spent $2.5 million getting to this point.
But
quite simply, we don't have the money or the resources to start back at the beginning 3 years ago on strategic planning work.
But clearly, as I've highlighted, and I probably direct this question to the communication strategy on this particular item, if someone can direct me and correct me. I mean, I've got all the notes in relation to the medium density. At no time or no level that the community was informed about the removal of villas and townhouses. Why was that misplaced?
That's not true, Councillor Maggio, with respect. Absolutely not true.
I've got the flyers. It clearly said, it didn't say that.
Councillor Maggio, I think we've sort of gone around and around here. I think we just need to move on.
I'm looking for a solution, Mr. Mayor. I'm very passionate about this. I think it's a very important debate. And I do support councillors' inclusions into the debate. I think majority of the councillors would like to see villas and townhouses continue in the city of Ryde. There's a lot of councillors identified the reasons why. The boom in city of Ryde is phenomenal. But I
think our task, Councillor Maggio, is to do that through R3 zonings, which we're starting at West Ryde now. It's happening. So I'd encourage you. It was a shame that you couldn't make it to the workshop the other day. Yeah, there's still some issues with it, but I'd encourage you to talk to staff because there's some identified areas in there that the community have tentatively supported to change to R3, and there'll be a process there, and that's the appropriate way to do it. To let the medium density housing code rip through our quiet streets is not the way to do it. So I think this council and community have established that. It's now on us to try and start moving on R3, and we're doing that right now. It's happening. It's happening right now. So let's have a chat about that as we move forward. Okay, thank you, Councillor Maggio. We'll vote on the amendment, noting that Councillor Kim has a further amendment. I'll cast in favour of the amendment. The amendment becomes the motion. Councillor Kim, your foreshadowed amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know who's on the desk. It might be Amanda.
Yes, it is.
Copy the amendment and copy A, B, C of the original motion. Put them together first.
Councillor Kim, just before we continue, I'll remind you that if it's substantially the same amendment, I will rule it out of order. Just bear in mind, that's a pretty consistent ruling I've made throughout this term of council, so just so you're aware.
And copy the amendment as well, please. Thank you. Can we just go up to A?
Is it close to a point of order, Mr. Mayor?
Remove A.
Making up motions on the fly is not allowed under the rules of meeting practice.
Councillor Kim, I'll give you a last chance just to move on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm working on my further amendment now. I mean, what a rubbish. I mean, you have a motion, you have an amendment which we haven't thought about. You're going on a further amendment. I mean, can you guys really think strategically 3 steps ahead and have all the words written up? What a rubbish.
Well, it's a requirement under the Code of Meeting Practice, Councillor Kim. So,
This is a further amendment.
which you've
Comes out of
supported.
debate.
Yeah. What's your further amendment, Councillor Kim?
So A, can we have remove A? And say that the presence of correspondence of a letter from Mayor to the Department of Planning about amendment to the medium housing definition be published. Published in the press correspondence. You can remove the press correspondence at the beginning. Yeah, that the mayor's letter and any correspondences be published at the next council meeting. Oh, fantastic. Good on, Amanda. Yep. And B, that the workshop council is conducted to discuss the R3 strategy or medium density strategy. In view to put forward to the community or something along the line. And say that the workshop to be held within 28 days. Yep, and we can remove, yeah, we can remove C and D becomes a C. Thank you, Mr. I think A and B we already agreed on. C is your amendment. So I can't see any reason why we can't agree to the further amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Is there a seconder? Councillor Delian. Okay, is there any debate, councillors? Is there anyone speaking in support? My only question to staff would just be that hard limit of 28 days. Is that practicable, Mr. General Manager? I know we've got that's within the caretaker period, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just what decisions can be made, can't be made.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certain decisions can't be made, but it's also during the July recess, so councillors might not be around, although with COVID they might be. So it might be difficult to get them in within 28 days. So maybe a bit of leeway might assist there. It's up to the council to decide.
Councillor Kim, what about as soon as practicable, or before the end of the term? I think is a good middle ground. I think it's a good discussion to have. It's up to you, of course, but I think that.
Councillor Delian, help, please.
Can you repeat that, please?
What was that? Sorry.
Councillor Delian, can you help, please?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I mean, as long as the discussion period starts, doesn't matter this council does it or next council does it, as long as we have a solution.
I think if we have as soon as practicable, I think is a good outcome. And
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a comment on that? I think if you want it to be meaningful, we're going to need a little bit more time to put a package together to present to you.
That's why I've got as soon as practicable. I think we do want to have a good discussion.
And it may not be the term of this council.
Oh no,
that's fine. That's fine. As long as
it has to happen in this council.
The ball is rolling.
Can't make any
critical.
I don't think we can make any decisions this term of council, but it's a discussion we should have. And I'd prefer have a good workshop with good content rather than something rushed for the sake of it being rushed. That's just my point of view. So, but anyway, that's a matter.
Actually, personally, I prefer not to rush it because otherwise we'll look political. It's best to do it properly. Next council term is fine as long as we follow council staff's guidance.
I think that's wise, Councillor Delian.
So Clifton has the hand up there.
Okay, are we happy with that, councillors? Is that a good middle ground, Councillor Kim?
I'm happy with that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. I think that's a good further amendment. Thank you. We've got Lane and Clifton.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I don't really want to speak to the substance. I just think in point B, there's a bit of a syntax problem with how it's worded. R3 medium density strategy in view to put forward to the community. Is it with a view to putting forward to the community? Or?
Yes, with a view, yes, I would imagine. So is that right, Councillor Kim?
Yes, well, in the future, once you come up with a workshop.
Yeah, that's fine.
Let the community know.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, that's all I wanted to say. I mean, I would prefer we do it sooner rather than later, but if it's acceptable to the movers, I don't have any.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Clifton.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just rising in support of that further amendment. I think it does address, it's an important issue, and I thank the councillors for raising it, and I would be in support of it.
Okay, good outcome. All right, let's vote on the further amendment, please.
Must not seen.
We've just got Councillor Dillon, you've got your microphone on. And we just need a vote, please, Councillor Dillon.
Well, thank you, Councillor Major, for raising an important issue.
Unanimous, councillors, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Kim, for coming and supporting us. It's very good. So you should come more often.
Okay, councillors, it's 10 o'clock.
So that's the further amendment.
Oh, sorry, that was the further amendment, sorry. We now need to vote on the further amendment becomes the motion. And we now need to vote on the motion. Once that's clear, just 1 second. That's clear, we can vote.
Interesting. But a great amendment with solutions. That's all I was asking. Very interesting.
Councillor Patterson. Thank you. That's unanimous. Councillors, it's 10 p.m. Just flagging that given the amount of confidential items, including tender and legal, I'll be moving to go into confidential approaching 10:30. So just be wary of that as we debate these motions. We're now debating notice of motion 2 and 4 concurrently. So we'll start with, I guess on the screen, we'll have Councillor Maggio's motion. And the outcome of this motion will then dictate notice of motion 4 as well. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lane, thank you. Oh, I'll make it Councillor Udelian because if that's all right, Councillor Lane.
Yeah, sorry, that's fine.
Yeah, that second one, yep. Okay, Councillors Maggio and Udelian.
Sorry, does this mean so they are merging the two of them?
Yeah, I think.
Like what happens to notice of motion 4?
I think whatever is resolved here is the final motion. It kind of it will be the resolution for 2 and 4.
Got it.
So if there's elements from 4 you want to add, you might want to do that now as part of the substantive motion. But whatever is resolved here is the resolution for both 2 and 4. So I think they both have 28 days. They both, I think there's just some of the Part C and D. The funding there is further report. Yeah, I think it's more or less the same except for the value, and some Part C, I think, which I think is
2 reports to come back now.
Yeah.
B and C.
Yeah. So I think they're more or less the same, and it'll be up to the mover and the seconder to determine an appropriate amount. And the report back will identify the funding source. They both have the minimum 28 days, and the August council meeting is an addition. So I think they just work.
That's legal requirement as mentioned by General Manager.
That's right. That's right. Is there anything from your motion, Councillor Udelian, that you'd like to add?
I like that this project goes ahead. I don't care it's 20,000, 15,000, 30,000,
Okay, sure.
as long as it goes ahead because it's very important.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Councillor. I think we'll just go with Councillor Maggio's motion, and we'll go. I think maybe up to. I think is a good addition, but it's up for the mover and the seconder.
Well, that's what I said, up to, because it might be that they already have other sources as well. We don't want to withdraw those sources as well, you know.
Sure. Councillor Maggio, would you be happy with up to $40,000?
Yeah, that's fine. That's excellent, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
that's 2 and 4 merged. I know there might be a bit of discussion on this, but so that's 2 and 4 merged. Whatever's resolved here will be the motion. Okay, Councillor Udelian, you've got your hand up. No, Councillor Pedersen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, so torn on this. I'm very much in support of a study of Italian market gardeners who, along with British and Chinese market gardeners, work the fields around Ryde. And, you know, and of course, I'm very supportive of the local Italian Australian community here in Ryde. I have many of them as my friends. Look, I feel we need to be very fair and consistent, though, with our approval for community grants. Otherwise, they just won't be sustainable. Particularly given the changing demographics in Ryde and the growing needs for social and community and cultural services. There's so many important cultural projects that are deserving of our support. It's just so many that are popping up, and they make enormous differences to people's lives, like grants towards alleviating loneliness and teaching people languages and, you know, computer skills for the elderly. And our community is incredibly diverse, and they're all hungry for these community grants. I'm just a little bit concerned. Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd love to ask Angela Jones Blaney some questions, if I could. Just in regards to the community grants process.
Sure.
Sure.
So, look, I guess in fairness, we need to look at how other community groups have been allocated funds for the same type of projects. So, like, do other books that have been produced? I know that other groups have produced books in the past. I know the Ryde Historical Society has produced books. Do they get funding for the whole process, like right for the publishing, all the distribution costs as well? Because I imagine $40,000 is why, you know, that is to cover all of that. Do they normally get that amount of money?
Through you, Mayor. Look, we've had a number of grants over the years that have been provided to groups in relation to producing books. The most recent actually was the Ryde Stedford, and I know a couple of you actually attended their launch a couple of weeks ago. They were awarded a community grant in 2019 of just under $5,000 to produce their book, which was the 30 Amazing Years, the History of the Ryde Stedford. That included $1,000 towards copies of the book that were gifted back to schools and libraries. And the remainder of that grant covered the cost of their book launch and their volunteer induction and training. And they raised additional money for the production of the book through sponsorship and other funding for the project. Another example is the side-by-side advocacy. They were awarded $1,000 back in 2015 to develop a book on stories from people with intellectual disabilities that was used for community distribution. The Ryde Historical Society has been awarded grants in 2019, and they received just under $2,000 to provide a primary school curriculum handout that was sent out to primary schools in the area, but it also included gifting 30 of the Ryde District Historical Society suburbs books to schools to the value of about $300. But in addition to that, the Ryde Historical Society, for example, received an Anzac centenary grant from the federal government to support the production of their book, because there are also opportunities outside of the community grants within a council that you can apply for to receive funding for things of this nature. And finally, as a comparison, as you are aware, the Italian migrants of Ryde actually received a $5,000 grant already that was awarded to the Lady of Grace Fraternity Incorporated towards the development of their book. And the grant application that was submitted by the Italian migrants of Ryde stated that $12,500 will be contributed from sponsorships and donations, and the remaining costs for the book would be covered by the sale of the books. So as you can see, there's quite a mix of opportunities to raise alternative funding for the production of the books. But as I said, the latest one that has been awarded was to the Ryde Stedford Committee, who was also awarded just under $5,000 for the production and distribution of their book.
Okay, so is this a different book? Are there two books? Because you mentioned that $5,000 was awarded to, what's the name of the group again? The
Lady of Grace Fraternity Incorporated.
Yeah, so is this a different book? Who is asking for the $40,000? Is it the same group, the same book?
Well, all I know is what's written in the notice of motion, and that's the Italian Migrants of Ryde Committee.
Perhaps you could ask me to speak, Mr. Mayor. You've allowed everyone else to speak except the mover of the motion.
Sorry, point of order, Mr. Mayor. So I'm
just one second, Councillor Maggio. Councillor Maggio, I go by the hands up, and there was not the only person.
No, you go by the mover. The mover's Councillor Maggio.
I said, is there any? Yeah, but your hand wasn't up, Councillor Maggio, as is practice. So I go with the person who hands it up. Councillor Maggio, don't worry, you will get a chance to speak.
But fine. I'm not obstructing the process, but
maybe it's better Councillor Maggio speaks, so at least we know what he's moving and people understand.
Councillors, I called for the mover to speak. There was no hand up. There was silence, and I saw Councillor Pedersen's hand up, so I went to her. Like, of course, Councillor Maggio. Of course, you get the opportunity to speak. It's your motion. If you'd like to speak, you can speak after Councillor Adelian, because I'm going by the hands up. Okay.
Okay, can I just finish, please, Mr. Mayor? I'm
Yes.
almost. Look, I'm
Yes.
just a little bit confused about whether it's the same book. It is a lot of money, and I actually think that we need to be consistent and give everybody, you know, who applies for these type of projects the same amount of money. I do, though, as Ms. Jones-Blaney has pointed out, I do think they might need maybe some help in applying for state and federal grants. I know that CAS, a local group that works with Chinese and Korean elderly people, they had a book produced just recently where we were there visiting a couple of weeks ago, and they said they got their funding. They didn't even apply for a grant through the City of Ryde. They applied directly to Multicultural New South Wales, and they were granted money for their book, for the production of their book. So there are other grants, and I think from what I've been seeing in the newspapers, it's saying that, you know, we're not providing any assistance. That is untrue. We have provided $5,000, which is in keeping with what other projects have applied for and been granted through our grants process. And don't get me wrong, I'm very supportive of this. I think that all of these, you know, these heritage stories need to be told. They're part of our tapestry here in Ryde, and we do have a very rich tapestry of cultural groups who've come here and built our communities. So I think it's important that we support it, and we have. And perhaps we can offer some guidance through our grants team in applying for more funding if it's required. The other thing that bothers me, though, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm a little bit confused. We all received a letter late this afternoon from the president of the Historical Society to say that the submission supporting the request for $40,000 was not made by them. They said they wanted to withdraw the letter of support because that letter was actually in support of the $5,000 grant that we've already given to this group. Now, that's what confused me about it, a different book, but somehow that submission ended up being sent to us tonight. So I just wanted to ask through you whether, as part of his address to us about this, whether Councillor Maggio could explain how that made its way into our questions.
Thank you, Councillor Pedersen. Are you proposing an amendment?
Yes, I am. Do you want me to put that?
Look, I think it'd be appropriate just to speed up the debate. Yep.
Okay, so I would like to amend the council note that the Italian Migrants of Ryde book project received a contribution of $5,000 under council's community grants program, and the council notes that the council's existing community grants process is an appropriate funding mechanism for projects of this nature. That the Mayor write to the Italian Migrants of Ryde project, acknowledging the fantastic work that's been undertaken so far by the committee, and wish them well in completing this project. That the City of Ryde staff assist the Italian Migrants of Ryde Committee in applying for state and federal grants to accompany their City of Ryde grant.
Could I just get indication of who's happy to second that, just by waving across the screen, please? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Okay, councillors, we have an amendment on the screen. We'll stick to debating that. Councillor, I've got Udelian next, but Councillor Udelian, were you happy for Councillor Maggio to speak first? As the
Yes, I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maggio and then Councillor Udelian, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I believe Councillor Pedersen has directed a question to me in relation to the money. Well, clearly, there was no money mentioned in the letter of support to the Ryde Historical Society. To be quite clear, the Ryde Historical Society, with my deliberations with the Italians, the Italian Migrants Committee, is that the Ryde Historical refused to support this project in relation to it was just too big for them. So in answering your question, they supported the project. They clearly supported the project, but they just couldn't outline the resources to assist them. So this has been a major job for this committee, and this council should be supporting these migrants who pioneers in this city. I will take the time to read this particular letter. It provides a history. It's clear to me that councillors who are advocating to not support what this motion is all about do not, and I'm going to clearly say it again, do not know the history. I'm of Italian heritage, and my family came here in the 1950s, and they did an amount of work in the relation to the community and so forth. So I'm going to read this submission put together by a particular person who's been a pioneer himself in the city of Ryde and who's advocated for the community. And clearly councillors in this particular term have advocated for his demise. But this particular man has brought the Italian community together. So I will start off the Italians in Ryde, and this clearly, please listen, because this provides a history on why this council needs to provide the $40,000 as one-off. And I will ask Ms. Blaney Jones some supplementary questions when I've finished this particular letter, because clearly she's only outlined low grants. What about the major grants that have been provided to the Ryde Symphony Orchestra and to Youth Theatre? They've been over the $40,000, which councils haven't heard. Anyhow, we'll get back to the submission in support for funding of a published record of their contribution to the development of Ryde. There is little doubt that the Italian community, particularly from the Calabrian region, must be included with similar recognition to our early settlers and founding fathers. They arrived in Australia seeking the opportunities that our great country had to offer in the order to start a new life and raise their families. They chose Ryde to establish their market gardens, and in particular, the greater proportion of North Ryde was under cultivation as Italian market gardens. They arrived in Australia with only the basic essentials, and through sheer hard work, and I can vouch for that, through my mother and father, through sheer hard work and dedication, established themselves an integral part of our community, the community that stands now. They will be at work on the land before sunrise and will be still working after sunset. It is rumoured that the Commonwealth Bank established a branch in Ryde to service the loans to the Italian community. They earned a good reputation for being very reliable as borrowers, to the extent that if a payment was due to the bank, it would be honoured well and truly on time. Excuse me. Having purchased their market gardens, they often brought their spouses to Ryde, in many cases having married them by proxy, where the brother of the groom takes the wedding vows of this in behalf of Italy, as well as sponsoring others from their village to come to Ryde. All of the area from Gilding Hill through Macquarie University campus was Italian market gardens, and the community subsequently formed association to recognise the patron saints of their respective towns, which exist. The St. George, patron of Martini, Our Lady of Grace, patron of San Giovanni di Grazia, San Clovis, patron of Rotteria. Each of these associations are and still Ryde-based organisations, and this is where these Italian communities and migrants have been established and still are in Ryde. Around 2005, this particular man had the honour of inviting the mayors of 42 towns comprising the Lockery region in Calabria to sign a friendship agreement, which some councillors want to remove. The friendship agreement with the city of Ryde to recognise the strong bonds that historically existed between that region and the city of Ryde. That is, the strong bonds that these Italian immigrants still here today exist and are still doing the right thing by their people and our community of Ryde. This agreement was not only based on these bonds, but particularly recognising the contribution, the great contribution that these people from this region, Italy, had made to development of Ryde. There is no doubt, clearly there is no doubt in anyone's minds, and clearly you need to know the history before you speak, and one who speaks doesn't know the history should not speak, especially as a Italian heritage who saw my mother and father grow up in the city of Ryde and work their damn asses. I know the history. So any other councillor should not speak when they do not know the history. This is no doubt that these Italians from Calabria and other regions have made the greatest impact on the development of Ryde as a city. And for that sake of the future generation, it should be recorded this evening, Mr. Mayor, and documented. And I commend this course of action for the appropriate funding by the way of a grant from Ryde Council of $40,000, signed by Ivan Petch the 29th of June 2021. This gentleman has done a lot for this city and should be recognised himself for the good that he's done and not be victimised. This man has built the community through a lot of hard work, and I commend this motion. For these councils' support. Do not be hoodwinked. There's been grants given to other organisations. This is an amazing project, and I can tell you now, Fairfield City Council funded the project. Why can't City of Ryde do it? I commend this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Maggio. I've got Councillor Delian next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, we are just passing the buck by telling go and to federal or state. Italian community knows their state member. That's why they elected our local member, Victor Dominello, the Minister for Services. He's Italian background. They know the addresses. They know the federal member of John Alexander. If they wanted any of those grants, they will go. Italian community is not like any other community. The houses, 80% of the houses today, it's seated on top of market gardens. The houses I live in North Ryde, the houses my friends and live in North Ryde and top Ryde area used to be market garden for Italians. So the Italian community is different. By giving an reason by 5,000, 2,000, that's our regular peanuts grants we are giving to the community. This is a major community. It's a major project. We should support them up to 40,000 if they need it, with proper acknowledgement to the Ryde Council, because Ryde history is based on Italian community. Of course, Anglo-Saxon as well, but Italian communities. The one in the future, while we could acknowledge the Chinese communities, we could acknowledge the Korean community, we could acknowledge the Armenian communities. We published a book of Armenian migration history to Sydney, but we never asked any grants from the government because we did it from our own pockets. But because Italian community's case is completely different, Ryde is based on Italian heritage. If you dig the ground, you'll find Italian sweat there. We're sitting on top of Italian markets. So this is one of project. The only thing we can do is support this group, supporting them and directing them. So this is successful project. Future generation will read it and find out what the Italians did to this community, like any other minority groups did, like any other migrants. I know a lot of Calabrian, I visit a lot of senior citizens, Calabrian from Calabria, and Councillor Maggio knows we have a common friends with them. They suffered a lot, and they will look as a leadership to this council to see, instead of talking about passing the bucks, going to Liberal Federal, going to the state, we should do our best to show leadership. Our council staff can give them leadership direction if needed to make this project successful. And yes, they might find other sponsors as well. If they find a sponsor, that's good. But that's why I put $20,000, because I believe any community, if they want to succeed, and they have to put their own part as well. They should be participant as well, not just handouts from the governments or local government organizations. They should do their best as well to make sure this project is successful. I'm sure, knowing the members of this community, they will do anything with us or without us, but it's better that they do it with us.
Thank you, Councillor Delian. Got Councillor Brown.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for the call. I'd like to start by saying that I'm a keen supporter of the original motions put forward by Councillors Maggio and Yedelian. I'd like to start by acknowledging the 12 or more people that have made written submissions to thank you for your work, to state to each of you that I've read your submissions with great interest. And in many cases, part of the stories that you shared are, of course, part of the book. Equally, they're things that I'm not aware of. Hence the value of this book coming forward. I'd like to thank people like Angelina, who I've spoken with on a number of occasions, and to Rosanna for educating me about this matter. I do think that before people start moving amendments and seconding amendments, they ought to educate themselves about exactly what is going on, and rather than sort of conflate one book into two books and sort of imagine all sorts of obstacles that don't really exist in actual terms, that perhaps you'd take a greater interest in private time and research. And if not, fair enough, we don't have unlimited amounts of time, then be guided, please, by those that have done that time, put that time in and have done that research. I think there was discussion earlier in the debate about organisations and using the efforts of the Eisteddfod or the Youth Theatre or other groups as a yardstick for determining how much funding should be received by this group. I would only suggest to you that this group is a group of individuals. They're not an incorporated entity. It's not a long-term fundraising appeal. If you think about the Eisteddfod, they have sponsorships from various sources. They've been going for 30 years. We just celebrated their 30 years or a little while ago. This is a group of a dozen or maybe 24 individuals who have come together. They're not an incorporated association. They don't have long-term corporate sponsors. They don't have long-term funding that supports them. They simply recognise that this is one of the unwritten chapters of the history of Ryde. We recently celebrated 150 years of Ryde. This is a chapter, in this case specifically a book, could be the first book of many, but a chapter of that 150 years must certainly be the Italian contribution to not only Ryde, but the broader district and to Australia, indeed, for that matter. And that's why other councils and other communities have supported similar initiatives. This is a wonderful and missing piece in the city of Ryde. It'll add to our cultural appreciation for one another. It'll add to our knowledge and our education. It'll add to the historical perspective of what makes us up. And it is critical that we support this and get this continue to move. Other organisations that are incorporated, the Eisteddfod being one, has a substantial financial donor base. The same for the Youth Theatre. I mean, the Youth Theatre must be the most heavily subsidised community group by this very council of all community organisations. If I think about my children and their various youth community groups, like playing cricket or scouts or brownies, Girl Guides, whatever, I couldn't possibly imagine if you take a ratio of the number of youth that participate in the Youth Theatre by the annual cost of what we contribute to them, it's an extraordinary sum per child. This is even at the top end of 40,000. This is a very small financial contribution by comparison, and the same too for the Ryde Hunters Hill Symphony Orchestra. I dare not imagine the budget for that. That was a community group. The community or volunteerism aspect of it has fallen over, and now the entire thing seems to be run virtually, or heavy components of it are run out of our own council. This is a separate structure. It's a different structure to those organisations. We ought to treat it for what it is and how it presents itself. It is a group of volunteers, a group of individuals coming together. They haven't even incorporated themselves. They've called it a one-time project. It's not like it's called the City of Ryde Italian Community Incorporated. It's just a one-time project to get a book off and running from a group of passionate people who are passionate for their own family histories and for the contribution they've made to us. And we are greater and better and richer for it. When I go through these submissions, interestingly, I look at the one from the Historical Society, and I've reviewed Kim Phillips' email earlier today. I find it interesting. I don't know how the Historical Society have been dragged into this, but in no way, shape or form do they make an endorsement of a $40,000 sum or even a $5,000 sum for that matter. It's a fairly short, supportive two sentences, really, talking about the value that they consider this piece will have to the overall historical perspective of who we are as a people.
That's time, Councillor Brown. Could you just wind up, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you for the call. congratulations to those individuals again. I'm a very keen supporter of yours. I do hope that other councillors see the error of their ways thus far, and that we can not pursue this amendment, but instead hold true to the original intent of Councillors Maggio and Yadelia. Thank you.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, let me just start with acknowledging the first people of the First Nation. And then tonight, I would like to acknowledge the fifth people of the First Nation, the Italians, for the fifth most spoken language other than English in Australia. I mean, they've been here. I think Councillor Yadelia said they actually pour sweat and blood to make this country work. I mean, I must say, I know very little about the history other than eating the food, which I love, my children love, and which I love listening to some of their music. And I have a friend called Maggio, who drives me nuts sometimes, but he's good. He's a good friend. So I owe a lot to the Italians, in a way. Practically everyday living, I live pretty much eating their food, their culture, and having an Italian friend. Now, having said that, I just want to go back to some of the discussions, debates that came up. So this word up to $40,000 is important. I think Councillor Pedersen is implying that they're going to spend every cent of it. I don't think they will. I'm sure they have some sort of community sponsors, and they may not spend all $40,000. So I'd just like to ask Councillor Pedersen to just relax. There's a word up to. Now, secondly, $40,000, yes, it may be a lot of money, but it depends on what sort of book you're producing. It's like the Italians have been here for a long time. They have extensive history. It may require extensive research. It may, there's some translation of original work, I don't know, written in Italian, that you want to translate to English. They have, so there may be a lot of face-to-face interviews, which you've got to video record them, you've got to store them, someone's got to edit them. So you know what you're doing. I mean, Italians, we know very well that they produce beautiful products like Louis Vuitton and Prada and Hermes, So this book might be one of those books that I really want to hold on to, read. I don't know, some of us may want to hug, and when I read it again, keep it in a book and pass down to our children. So if you look at the quality of the book that might come out of this, I don't think $40,000 may be too much. But again, I'd like to go back and say it's up to $40,000, not entire $40,000. Okay. Now, I just want to go back and talk about the groups. There was some debate about maybe some other group already got some money to produce a book. I'm sure they may have. But come on, this is a democratic world. We've got to have more than one book. I mean, why can't we have more than one book? Do you really only want one book? And that was published several years ago by a specific group, which gives us their viewpoint about what Italian migrants did. Now we'll have to see a variety and diverse viewpoints. And so I don't think that's important. About the submission, well, they supported it. Whether the quantum was correct or not, I think that's a matter of debate. Probably it's a misunderstanding. I don't think there was any malice in it. But it is our decision. We need to make a decision as to whether we should grant this grant or not. So our decision shouldn't be sidetracked because of this mistake or typo in submission. We should focus on the quality of the the product or this book is going to produce. And Councillor Pedersen, she bothers me, she says. She bothers me that all these things bothers her. I don't understand why would this bother you? I mean, all we're doing is that we're going back, tracing back to our history. Italians are integral part of their community. I consider them as heritage. And what this book is going to produce is going to enrich the information contained in this book is going to enrich us today. So I'd like to thank Councillor Maggio for bringing this motion forward for the council to consider. And yeah, well, you're my friend, and I'm going to vote for you tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. We'll go to Councillor Gordon and then Councillor Zhao, and then we'll have a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm afraid there is a sort of a due process issue here that I cannot get my head around. We've given $5,000 to a group for a book of the same name. Is Councillor Maggio's original request for $40,000, is that in addition for the same book, so that we're giving $45,000? I understand we've reworded the motion, but the intent here. Or are there two different groups? And have we given $5,000 to one group and now we're being asked to give up to 40 or whatever to another group? I think we need a bit of clarity on that before we can really move forward. If it's the same group, then they've already received 5. Not only that, the original grant application stated that they'd be getting $12,500 from sponsorships and donations, and that the remaining costs would be covered by the sale of the books. So if it's the same group, is that no longer the case? Is there paperwork? Are there whatever? Is there word of mouth that things have changed, that for some reason they've decided they can't get $12,500 in sponsorship and they'd rather come to council and get up to $40,000? It's very unclear. I really, just on that one thing, I have great difficulty supporting any of this. I think the idea of a book on Italian migrants of Ryde is fantastic. I really do. I think it's a wonderful idea and something in itself that I very much support. Just as I'd like to see Chinese migrants of Ryde. And as time goes by, Indian migrants of Ryde and Korean and Persian and Armenian and so on. I think we all treasure our great history, both for the past, of course, and then as it unfolds. So I have a lot of difficulty there. I would like to point out a couple of things, that there are other places to get grants as well, and that's what so many other groups have been doing. Councillor Pedersen mentioned the book by CAS, the Chinese Australian Services. They got a grant from the Multicultural New South Wales to do this book. Now, I imagine this has got smaller intentions than the Italian book. Nevertheless, that's what they did. We have Ryde Remembers by the Ryde Historical Society, and they got their funding from the Department of Veteran Affairs, and it's a magnificent book. Beautiful paper, beautifully laid out, and a lot of research has gone into it. Hours and hours and hours. I keep going because it's important. We've had the Ryder Stedford book mentioned, which I was very privileged to launch a couple of weeks ago. And I acknowledge the other councillors that came that night as well. It's an absolutely amazing achievement as a book. It's the highest quality paper, photos, information, research, so on and so on. So for this book, I don't know what it cost, but council through the community project grants gave the Ryder Stedford just under $5,000 for this book. And that included, out of that 5,000, 1,000 was to be able to give copies away to schools and libraries, not to make the book. They got the extra money, the final funding through application, through 50 sponsors, including local clubs, businesses were involved. In other words, they went out and they got support from the community and funding. And one final thing I will say is, again, it was mentioned with the Ryde Historical Society. What we have here, it's hard to show on Zoom, but I have 11 books. Each one is on a suburb of Ryde. The first one, a droplet of Ryde's history, and then there's, you know, Eastwood and Tennyson Point and Denniston and Meadowbank and so on and so on. Each one thoroughly researched with fantastic information. Not the highest quality of production, but fantastic things themselves. And what did the Ryde Historical Society get to create these? They got nothing. They did it themselves. What they did get was a separate grant to deal with primary schools, $2,000 grant, out of which they earmarked $300 so that they could give these away, not make them, but give them away to primary schools. So for me, this is all really, really lopsided. We've got a fantastic idea. It seems they've already received $5,000, but if it's a different group, I think we need to know. So I would commend, for the moment, I will commend Councillor Pedersen's amendment. I think that's the appropriate way to go. And if there is further information and further ways, I'd be very happy to hear what they are, because I would love this to happen in the long run. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. And just before I move to Councillor Zoe, I'd just like to add my comments. I think a lot of the debate tonight, your comments excluded, and Councillor, some of the other debate have been pitching this as a, you know, you support the 40 grand, you support the project, you don't support the 40 grand, you don't support the project. I think we heard there very eloquently from you, Councillor Gordon, is that I think there's common acknowledgement that this project will be great for the City of Ryde. My concern is the amount of money that's being proposed in the motion, particularly when, and I think you've outlined it brilliantly there, the precedent that's been set. You know, you can agree that a $5,000 grant is appropriate. You can support this project and still question whether or not 40 grand is a good use of ratepayers' money here. And this means I bear no offence to Italians in Ryde, and in particular to the lovely committee who I've had the pleasure of hosting in my office, who I know are putting their blood, sweat and tears in this. I mean, I just don't think it's an appropriate use of $40,000 of ratepayers' money. Now, that doesn't mean I don't support the project. That doesn't mean, you know, I disagree with Councillor Maggio or Councillor Pedge. You know, I would rather that money be spread fairly and equally through our grants process, as is each every year, and as has been received by this project already. I think that's a very appropriate way for public money to be distributed amongst all ethnic groups, all minorities, all majorities, all citizens across the city. I just have a real problem with the quantum of the money and the fact that this seemingly may or may not go through tonight through this process. And that's it. And that doesn't mean I'm against the project. That doesn't mean I'm against Italians. I mean, I've got my great-great-grandfather was Italian. You know, it doesn't mean any of that, as I'm sure may or may not be portrayed in the press, depending on how this goes. My point is that I would much rather that $40,000, which we know is a finite amount of money that we have. We know our budget's under pressure. We know, you know, our income is always under pressure here at council. Is $40,000 a wise investment? And respectfully, I just don't think it is. And that doesn't mean that I disagree with this project or that I don't want to see it go up. I'm very confident that, like many other community groups, they'll be able to find external funding. I'm very confident of that, and I would encourage them to explore that. I just don't think it's a good use of ratepayers' money, and that's how I'll be voting tonight. Councillor Zhao.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question through you to our staff team. I would like to know what was the highest dollar value of a one-off contribution we have made to a community organization or community projects, including the Ryde Orchestra and Chamber of Commerce, any organization, the highest dollar value of one-off contribution, please.
Ms. Jones-Blaney.
Through you, Mayor, that's a respectfully, it's a very broad question, but what I can say about the funding that was received by the Ryde Youth Theatre and also the Ryde Symphony, that actually didn't come out of the community grants budget. They were actually resolutions of council. So they weren't actually from the community grants budget.
How much?
And how much was it?
I think the Ryde Youth 75,000. And the symphony was 50 from memory.
Over how many years?
4. But as I said,
There
that
are.
wasn't community grant, Councillor Maggio. That was resolved by council.
And do we also employ staff, may I ask, to support the
No.
orchestra these days?
No, we don't employ staff to support the orchestra.
Okay, we have staff then who do support the orchestra through sort of bookings and other means.
Minutes.
Councillors, I'm wary of your questions here. I just know Councillor Zhao has asked a question and he's got an answer. Councillor Zhao, did you have any further questions?
No, that was my question, but I would like to know that number within our term, which means we voted together, we approved. What was the highest number, highest dollar value?
Sure. I think the comparison between an orchestra and a youth theatre and a book is a long bow, but that's my own personal opinion. Councillor Majali.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, there's been plenty of debate, so I won't add to it too much. I'd only point out, you talk about allocating ratepayers funds, and you know, we come here each month. You know, very early on, I spoke about how we'd constantly be spending money, even though we'd endorse budgets. You know, we'd create new pet projects. People would have agendas that they're pushing, and new funding was created all the time. In terms of the efficiency of the spending, if I don't recall, not too long ago, we took the New South Wales state government to court because we weren't happy with our own LEP, which cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we talk about the efficiency of our spending and you know, how we allocate our resources. Well, I think we can have a long debate about how efficient we have been at spending ratepayers' money, because I'm sure there's many thousands of ratepayers that would say we haven't done a very good job in many instances. And that's just one example. So, you know, when you look at in the scheme of it, this one-off grant really isn't, you know, some extraordinary waste of ratepayers' money.
Councillor Maggio, with your right of reply, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, and I thank the councillors for their indulgence in this motion. Could you just scroll down to the motion, please? Because I think we're getting down to the original motion. I've only got the amendment on my screen. Could staff screen down to the original motion? And the council allocated an amount of up to 40,000 to the Italian Migrants of Ryde project at the next quarterly budget. That a meeting be facilitated within 10 days to discuss the financial implications of the project, which is ideal. So it could be up to $40,000, it could be less. But that question needs to be asked of the committee, that the proposed resolution be exhibited. This is where a lot of councillors are already giving the $40,000 away. It needs to be exhibited for the minimum period of 28 days and for a further report to be brought back to council. So you know what we should be doing is allowing the community, and especially Italian community, who will clearly advocate for this to happen because they want it. I don't know if council has read all those emails that came through. Well, I've got an abundance of them. It's still on my computer that I could not enter in the time that I were receiving them. And I mentioned that to the council officers, but they said it was too late. The deadline was midday. But if you read those emails, you had Anglo-Saxons, you had universities, you had someone who was a professor who was very interested in this. You had a diverse of people who were clearly supporting this book. It's not a folder, as you highlighted to us, Councillor Gordy, it's a book. It's a history of the Italian migrants. There is a need for this to happen. the Ryde Historical Society clearly are supporting the project. So clearly someone's contacted them and they've declined their letter. But they clearly said to this committee that they could not provide the resources to do this project. But clearly the City of Ryde are employing someone to do the history on the Chinese, which is fine. So clearly it's okay because Italians do pay rates in the City of Ryde. I think I might be mistaken, but I think the Italians do pay rates in Ryde. This is the Italian history that a lot of councillors are unaware. And I said it early in my deliberations from the former mayor, the emeritus mayor, Ivan Petch, who put the Italian community in lieu of everyone else. The Italian community were here, they were breadwinners for their families, and they did the right thing and still doing the right thing. They want this to happen. It's clear that another LGA has supported it. Clearly, we're only speaking on an amount. After that amount is discussed by the committee, it could be less than 40,000. It could be 25 and 30. We're only picking a figure of $40,000, but it still has to go out to the community. So you let the community judge us, Mr. Mayor. You don't judge for the community and say this is not warranted. It's warranted for you to spend $500,000 at Eastwood, where councillors supported you. Even though there was a robust discussion, still councillors who refused to support you supported the $500,000 at Eastwood, right? They did. Now, what's wrong of not supporting the Italian migrants of Ryde? Have you got a problem with them? Well, you should publicly say that. But clearly, a lot of you councillors don't know the history. I know the history. I'm Italian migrant from a migrant family. I know the history. You don't. So to go out there and advocate that this is not a good idea is ludicrous. It is a great idea. And you've heard from our director about the funding for other organisations, a resolution of council. That was a direct resolution of council with no debate at all. The debate here is clearly mistaken because it clearly says the proposed resolution set out to be exhibited for a minimum period of 28 days. That's where you're all missing the point. The money hasn't been given to them until their report comes back to the council. So allow this to get through, allow for the report to come back, and then judge if you want to vote or not support. Don't throw this out. Wait till it comes back to council, and then if you don't want to support it, then you'll be judged. But don't just throw that out. It clearly, I have followed the protocol of council. My first initial motion was put forward to the general manager, who clearly said to me, it's unlawful. And so then he said, you need to add the proposal of the resolution of 28 days. And I've done that. So it's lawful. So there it is. It's been supported by the staff in relation to making it lawful. So once this gets exhibited to the community, allow it to come back. If everyone wants to have their say, even councillors can clearly write opposing it. But let everyone else have a say, bring it back, and then after we bring it back, it's yes or no. It's quite simple. I just am very cautious of everyone putting down the Italian migrants of Ryde. They deserve this, and you should be supporting them. Remember, they're voters also. I commend this motion to the council, Mr. Mayor. I'll allow it, and I'll leave it to everyone how to vote.
Thank you, Councillor
Maggio. Well done.
Maggio. All right, let's vote on the amendment, please, in the names of Pedersen and Gordon. Councillor Zhao, are you voting or abstaining?
Mr. Mayor, I'm still deciding.
Okay,
Sorry,
it's okay. It's okay. The amendment is lost. We go to the motion. Sorry, we just need to clear that vote before we change votes, please. Just 1 second. All right, that vote's clear now. You can vote on the motion. Councillor Maggi, you just need to vote on your motion.
I did, sir. I voted yes.
There you go. That's 7 votes for and 5 against. The motion's carried.
Thank
Good
you.
debate,
Thanks,
councillors.
Councillor.
All right, councillors, I just need a motion to move into confidential, please. Moved by councillor Pedersen, thank you. And seconded by councillor Gordon, thank you. Vote on that, please, councillors. All right, just need councillor Clifton, councillor Maggio. Councillor Clifton's absent. I'm missing someone. Councillor Maggio, if we just vote on confidential, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's
sir.
eight votes for and 3 against. We are just going to stop the recording, councillors.